Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku was the light in her struggles, part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story madwoozy from AO3. So let's start the video. Pilot. Chapter text. Y/N. The woman's stern voice echoed into the room that was almost silent, excusing the sound of your fists making loud contact with the punching bag in the center. You didn't initially react to your name being called. Your earbuds drowned outside noise almost completely. Y/N. That time you reacted. Partly because your housemate threw a sandal at you as she called for the second time. Geez, what? You took out your earphones. Sweat doused your whole body. Your face was painted red and confused after your high-intensity morning workout. Your white tank top was almost completely wet from the sweat after the stressful combination of intense cardio and Japan's hot summer weather. Our guests are here. Already? You raised your eyebrows, completely thrown off. I thought you said they were coming later this afternoon. Who even are these people? She seemed to be disappointed that you weren't ready for the guests' arrival, but was more so excited for you to meet them. I told you, it's a surprise. She entered your padded training room, walking closer to you with a warm smile. Come on now, you don't have time to get changed. We can't keep them waiting. You would be lying if you said you weren't completely stumped by who she could possibly be surprising you with. Unless, of course, it was Kim woozing. You pulled the bottom of your singlet up to your face to wipe the sweat, revealing your stomach that was fiercely toned. Come on, Y/N, let's go. Your guardian, 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲, grabbed your arm and pulled you out of your room and towards the front door, near running. Okay, she took a moment to compose herself. Prepare yourself. And be nice. You simply could not resist the urge to eye roll. May reached forward and opened the front door of your small home. As the door swung open, you found yourself holding your breath. 3 people greeted you with zero reaction whatsoever. Or 2 people and a rat? You couldn't immediately recognize who these people were, so you looked up at May for some answers. Y/N. This is Pro Hero Eraser Dash. The scraggly-looking man on the left of the 3 interrupted May. Aizawa is good enough for now. Goddamn, man's definitely had a pack of cigarettes for breakfast. To your unbiased observation, there was simply no way this man was a pro hero. It doesn't even look like he could shower himself, let alone save people's lives. Alright, you choked out somewhat rudely. Oh, I recognize you. Your head had turned to the woman on the left, clad in her very distinguishable hero suit. Midnight. I recognize your, costume. You felt your heart stop beating when May slapped you across the back. Jesus, Y/N, have some respect. Midnight struck some sort of soul-destroying you pose and winked at you. Huh. You made my day. Mwah. You felt your throat physically recoil at the action. Then you glanced down at the rat man, half smiling at him. Right, sorry. You rubbed the back of your neck, offering a brief bow. I'm sorry to be rude, but I'm just confused. You glanced at May again. What is it exactly that you 3 are doing here? Can I help you with anything? You had no choice but to assume that all the 3 of them were pro heroes. But you could not so easily assume what they were doing on your doorstep. Aizawa, as he called himself, shared a deeply confused expression with May, and held the moment for a weirdly long time. If it's okay, I'd like to have a word alone with 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲. Oh. You deadpanned. So, the surprise wasn't actually for you? Okay, you turned. Would you like to come inside? The silence was deafening as you sat in the lounge room, not able to hear the discussions going on inside the kitchen. So. You timidly glanced at the mouse man, trying to break the silence. Nice weather out. It is, isn't it? He cheered with a smile. I love bright days like today. You pursed your lips, toying with the hem of your basketball shorts. Kill me now. I should have told you, but I was concerned you wouldn't be interested anymore. So, Aizawa massaged his forehead. Y/N. Isn't it all aware that she has applied to enter the hero course at UA? Nor does she know that we're here at her house to interview her. Solemnly and slowly, May nod her head. Right. Aizawa was clearly disappointed. Midnight didn't seem to mind. So, can you elaborate? Well, you've been made aware of her past via the email I sent for the application. It was all pretty dark, and I was selected to care for her after the police deemed her unfit for a regular community housing. Her living situation has to be monitored, but all of those details are in her folder. Where are her parents? Aizawa interrupted. Her father's in jail. Her mother's passed away. She's an orphan? More than that. May continued. Her father was Hansol Yuna. You know, famous gang-ring lord of the mafia, Yakuza type of man. I've heard of him. Okay, go on. 𝗧𝗏𝗏's quirk is very strong, being a combination of her parents' already tenacious quirks. But not only that, her determination and resolve never ceases to surprise me, even after all this time. Although it's quite bold to claim, in my opinion, 𝗧𝗏𝗏's talent is on par with the pros in your field. She has fine-crafted her abilities over the last 5 years, and her potential just can't go unnoticed. She has insane control of her quirk, and she's improved so much since I first started caring for her. May began to get worked up with excitement, just talking about it. She trains day and night, almost every day. She's constantly bettering herself even when no one is watching. Gosh, it makes me so emotional. To see her still watering her own flowers, despite everything that has happened to her. Aizawa was listening somewhat attentively. I've read the summary of her quirk, and personally, I actually watched some of the videos you submitted of it in action. I can't deny that she's physically very strong. But not only were those videos of her training all taken without her knowledge, but she has no idea I sent them to your academy. May seemed to be too proud of herself. She never really expressed interest in attending a fancy school or even becoming a hero. She just wants to be better. Aizawa waited for her to finish. There had to be more. There was no way they came all this way for someone who didn't even want to go to their school. She made firm eye contact with Aizawa, leaning forward over the table. But I've seen what she can do. I'd never be able to forgive myself if I just sat around and let her talent go to waste. She deserves a chance. She could really help people. Aizawa could feel the genuineness in her voice. She was practically shaking to be heard. Plus, he had seen the videos. And he was interested. Well, it's already too late for her to enter the course per normal requirements, as the entrance exams have passed. So she would have some catching up to do, and would probably feel out of place for a while. But he slowly scratched the stubble on his chin with one finger. I will make my own personal assessment depending on what she has to say. Please give her a chance, sir. May put her hands together. Ever since I took her under my wing, I've known that 𝗧𝗏𝗏 doesn't understand her potential. Please erase her head, sir. At least let her show you. Very well. Call her in here. He leaned back into his chair. Let's have a chat. Right, class. Chapter text. Finally, you managed to locate the classroom. It had been such a long morning. Between a 5 a.m. training session, a spilled gallon of milk in the kitchen, and your school blazer already disappearing, your morning was full of chaos. Finding the classroom alone had already made you 10 minutes late, although you arrived on campus 30 minutes early. This school was so much larger than any of your previous ones. Wandering the halls was like wandering without a compass in a dark pine forest. But you could only assume it was all unnecessary precautions, considering how many different types of people dream to become heroes. You always found it sort of stupid. Why should you need to have a license to want to help people out? It's criminal that you can't do those things just because you can. The law says that you need to attend a fancy school, take some fancy tests, and pick a fancy name. Then you can help people in need. But you had never cared about that before. You had only made the decision to pursue UA once you were personally recommended by Pro Hero, Eraserhead, and with the addition of your adopted guardian, May, begging on her knees for you to go. Like, begging. Flashback. May dropped to her knees on the hardwood floor of your apartment, tears flowing out of her eyes like raging waterfalls. Her hands clasped together hard before she desperately grabbed onto your shirt and tugged down on it. Please, 𝗧𝗏𝗏. You have to go. You have to. For me. You shook your head, ridding of the uncomfortable memory. May had once attended UA herself, back in her prime. But her enrollment ended up falling through, because of her performance abilities. She wanted to be a pro hero too, but simply didn't make the cut, and it had been a heavy weight on her shoulders ever since. You wanted to make her happy. You did it for her to some extent. Getting into the hero course at UA didn't come as much of a shock to you, courtesy of the strength of your quirk. But what did surprise you was that they had asked you to attend their school. They wanted you. No entry exams. No tests. Immediate enrollment. It was a solid opportunity that a lot of people would probably kill for. You weren't exactly sure why they had asked for you, but you decided to roll with it. You weren't going to take this hero thing too seriously while attending the school. You just wanted to focus on using the facilities to your advantage and bettering yourself every way the school would offer. As you walked into the room, you were met with a sea of colorful faces. Most of them seemed to have already found their seats, aside from the few students that were standing around chatting. Most of them looked confused to see you. You had to remember that these people had already met each other and were somewhat familiar. They already had established their hierarchies. They spent time together in the exams and other neighboring events. The first week had already passed. You were way behind schedule. So, it was a good thing that you weren't interested in fitting in with them. Your eyes that were bored with fatigue did a slow lap of the room before offering a half-assed nod, and you made your way towards the only open seat you could see. It was a grand total of 5 seconds before you started noticing the stares and hearing the whispers. Nearly everyone around you seemed to have an undeniable interest in you. It was odd, causing you immediate discomfort. You turned your head around the room slowly, trying not to hold eye contact with anyone for too long. Seriously, why the hell are they all staring like that? They sure as hell didn't have any concept of personal boundaries, staring at you so blatantly. Jeez. Weirdos. This is #1 hero class? For the top dog heroes in training, they're not very inviting. But maybe you just looked intimidating to them. To drown out the feeling of incredible, dreadful judgment, you found yourself turning the volume of your earphones right up. You kept your head down, refusing to look around anymore. One thing that was in the front of your mind: first impressions matter. And you're not here to make friends. Do the work. Do it well. Stay in your lane. You don't need to be nice. Your music was so loud that you didn't hear one of the girls in the class calling out to introduce herself, so she gave up after calling 3 times. You took your time getting into your zone, ignoring the loud chattering from all around you as the class made good use of their free time before homeroom. You didn't want a bar of any of it. The only interaction you planned on having was when you were to ask someone which direction the school gym was. Soon, your peripheral vision catches the door sliding open again. Some of the students that were chatting aimlessly near the door received a big fright when 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪 slowly shuffled inside the room. Tired, unshaven, unenthusiastic. His regular self. The students made way to their seats. You took that time to take your earphones out and slip your important belongings into your pocket. Morning class. God. Listening to his voice is like pulling teeth already. Yuna, please make your way to the front. Your eyes widened. You didn't expect to be called upon so quickly. Keep your composure, Y/N. At the request, you slid your chair backwards, causing a loud squeak, but not even looking to see if it had bothered the person behind you. You made your way up to where 𝗧𝗪 was standing, offering him a quick nod as hello. This is the new student you all heard about. She was enrolled late for reasons that concern none of you, so don't bother asking. 𝗧𝗪 leaned back onto his speech podium, throwing his voice quietly towards the majority of the class. Introduce yourself. Y/N Yuna. Your voice was stern. Simple. You kept your expression uninterested and straightforward. You refused to show any signs of weakness. You couldn't. Unapproachable. That's who you want to be. I expect to see you all being gracious when it comes to welcoming her to the class. That means you, 𝗑𝗂𝗧𝗪, 𝗧𝗪 ordered, while lacking any sort of enthusiasm, much like you had. Alright, you can sit back down. You didn't recognize the name 𝗑𝗂𝗧𝗵𝗃, but there was one boy in particular who happened to be seated behind you. That boy had hot steam pouring out of his ears. You followed 𝗧𝗪's instructions, breaking off silently to head back to your desk. Your wondering eyes betrayed you once more. You briefly glared around the room, scanning for something, but nothing in particular. Suddenly, you met eyes with someone. 𝗧𝗵. He looked vaguely familiar, but you could not remember for the life of you where from. It was his hair. It was hard to forget. The natural half-white, half-red slump was imprinted in your brain. You mentally scolded yourself for failing to remember where you had recognized him from. His stone-cold glare was locked on you too. For a long moment. Did he remember you? Shit, how do you know this guy? Suddenly, he peeled his glare away from you and looked somewhere on the far left side of the room. Guess not. You got yourself comfortable in your seat, in front of the man who looked like he wanted to watch the whole world slowly burn before him. Fuck, what kind of people do they let in this place? Maybe Yue isn't as good as they say. There was a whole different type of person, every direction you looked. Left and right. So many different stories, different goals, different people, and personalities. So, to be fair, if there was one thing the press couldn't say about Yue, it would be that they lacked diversity. But, fuck, you swore you could feel the blonde boy's eyes burning a hole in the back of your head. Is he in the right class? Match. Chapter text. Your eyes squint, trying to see over the small crowd of classmates. Firstly, I think it's important to start off today's events by giving a warm welcome to our new student, enrolled by a special recommendation. Jesus, again? All Might started clapping loudly, while a small wave of timid claps followed. One of the students following up claps sounded particularly passionate and loud, but you could not tell who. You felt like a stunned deer in the headlights. You were at the back of the pack, minding your business and silently following along on your very first day of hero training. Today, hero training will be very beneficial for you young heroes. We will be trialing a test battle, All Might began, grinning wide. Hero versus villain style. Battling each other. Nice. For the next 5 minutes, All Might goes on to explain how the events would play out and what kind of rules applied to the test. He explained that it will be a 2-on-2 team battle, chosen at random. As the rules are summarized and the possibilities start to open up to you, you find yourself welling with subtle excitement. You kept it well contained. No one would know you were wired with motive. To maintain your focus, you simply kept to the back of the group and spent time stretching out your arms and legs. You prepared for battle. The exercise carried out much like you had assumed it would, with the students getting too pent up in their own drama to focus properly on the training. Most of them had wasted the fruits of opportunity to seize a simple 1v1 battle. You, alongside most of the class, sat in a surveillance room, watching the battles play out. They went on for longer than expected. You enjoyed watching closely. You got to grow familiar with the people and their quirks that you would soon be competing against. You had the element of surprise in this class. It would be a shame to waste that opportunity. None of them knew anything about you, nor had anyone cared to ask. Before you knew it, your name was called to make your way to the allocated building. Team 𝗵𝗃 and Todoroki Shudo, All Might revealed the ball. Versus Team H, Hagakure Toru and Yuna Y/N. You felt excited to hear your name being called, but you kept a blank expression. Pulling the zip on your simple black hoodie, you headed out the door and made your way to the designated building. Okay, just guard this big bomb thing. Easy. You couldn't believe you were lucky enough to be in a room by yourself. That meant that you had full creative freedom to use the training however you wanted, and you could freely express your abilities without someone else to look out for. This means I can use proper attacks. Hiya. Shit. Suddenly you leapt away from the voice that could be heard shockingly close to you. As in right beside you. The person hadn't been announced. Were they hiding? Why didn't I notice them sooner? What the fuck? Who's there? You prepared to engage your quirk. Down here, someone said. My name is Toru Hagakure? It was a female voice. She sounded timid and somewhat embarrassed, probably after your outward reaction. Empty shoes and floating gloves implied one thing. Invisible. Great. You sighed, rolling your shoulders loosely. Don't sneak up on me like that. I could have killed you. It's kind of hard not to sneak up on people when you're, invisible? You looked her way, but found yourself awkwardly staring at the wall behind her. What, you can't turn it off? Hagakure and Yuna seemed to be talking a lot, Yurarka Ochiko observed from the viewing room, stroking her chin. I'm surprised they're not more into it. Does she even know who she's up against? Kaminari Denki asked. I mean, this is her first chance to make an impression on the class and teachers, and she's standing around chatting. I doubt the teachers haven't seen what she's capable of if she was let into the class so late. Midoriya Izuku observed, after being let out of the recovery room. I'm sure she's got something special to offer. Also, what's with her hero suit? It's way too conservative. Mineta Minoru stood beside Kaminari, staring intently at the screen. This round isn't even worth watching. Don't say stuff like that so freely. It's super rude. Kirishima Aijuru called him out. Give her a chance to show us what she's got. Yeah. I'm super excited to see her quirk. Yeah, since she's so reserved, it's probably super flashy. Wait, Todoroki's moving. First, it was Hagakire's screech of terror that brought you to the realization that the ground beneath you had been frozen solid. Matter of fact, it seemed that the entire building had been frozen, all at once. Immediately, your brain got to work. This is one of their quirks, some sort of ice dispensing power. Relatively high scale too. Though, to be fair, not much of a match for you. So this is their attack? Just freeze you still? A smirk infected your face. Like that's gonna work. Hagakure was instantaneously frozen solid and rendered useless, as she shouted out in pain. But the frozen ground didn't hold you captive for very long, as you quickly got to work. Although you were frozen all the way up to your chest, it only took a few seconds before the ice around you started to sizzle and melt away. In a matter of seconds, you stood in a puddle of water, the ice in the room slowly melting around you as it expanded. A thick layer of smoke and mist from the ice started to gather near the roof. Geez, whoever that was, their quirk must still be pretty powerful to offer such a large-scale attack. Ice would definitely be handy. As a few short seconds ticked by, subtle waves of heat started to poison and thicken the air, and so you made the quick decision to leave Hagakure in the ice for that very reason. To protect her from the heat. There was nothing visible about your quirk yet. The onlookers on the other side of the screen stared inquisitively as they made bold assumptions about how you had melted the ice so quickly. The room had started burning up, and by that point, you heard footsteps slowly approaching. You readied yourself. What to do? Quick. You couldn't just activate your quirk and attack. It wasn't that simple. This is hero training. You couldn't bear to fully engage and properly demonstrate your quirk in such a dangerously confined space. Nor did you want to brutally slaughter your opponents. You had to think of a way to finesse the win without using the offense of your quirk. Stick to defense or simple hand-to-hand combat, where your real strength lays. Faint sizzling could be heard growing near. That was when you decided to move, quickly vaulting over what was left of the room's structures and the ice, using it as leverage to get higher. Your physical strength was beautifully showcased to the watchers as you quickly maneuvered your way around the large blocks and used the room to your advantage. Almost parkour style, you leapt quickly from each obstacle. Your upper body strength and agility was on full display in those few moments. Skillfully, you hoisted yourself up to the very top of one of the large pillars, and soon you got yourself close enough to the main entrance. You had successfully achieved higher ground. You clutched onto the pillar tightly, looking down at the door. Then you waited. Silently. This was your best option given the situation. It wasn't long after that the boy came strolling in. A glowing red light flowed from his left eye, which, paired with the half-half ice design of his suit, made for creating a cyborg/Terminator-looking costume. It was unsettling but cool in some regard. He had heated and melted his path through the ice, as to not slip on it. So, if he has some kind of heat-producing quirk, then who froze the entire building? Where was the other guy? None of it made sense, but you didn't have time to think about that. You timed your attack perfectly, waiting until your target was right below you. Then you pounced. As he was walking towards the target bomb, you leapt off your platform and fell down towards him, drawing your hand back for your first strike. Todoroki's senses flashed at the same time that he heard a faint noise from above, causing his head to tick toward the sound. Your fist flew at his face full force. Although Todoroki was given enough notice to quickly react, he only managed to move his head out of the way. But you still landed your shot. Assessing the situation quickly, you chose to redirect the angle at which you delivered your attack the very moment Todoroki moved his head away. You changed the position of your body midair, swapping your first attack from being a right arm jab into a left arm swing. A hard body shot right to his gut sends him flying backwards, off his feet and onto the floor. Todoroki grunts, deeply shocked and confused. You land somewhat painfully, but smoothly on the ice, quickly rolling to an upright position. You gave him no time to react nor collect himself, as you were already charging at him again. You briefly slipped on the ice, before you readied up another attack which, although Todoroki was still on the floor, he was quick to block. He was coughing and, in defense, fired an ice wall attack right up at you, and you ducked to the left to evade. Not without copping a gash on your cheek from one of the sharp shards. So he's got the ice quirk too. Damn, he's strong. You tumbled expertly below the attack, quick-paced and swift at regaining your footing. You used his ice against him, creating a blind spot block, so there was an opening for you to sneak in closer. You tried to swing another attack, but he forced you back with another ice shot. He had amazing defense, but you could tell he was being reckless. Your reaction time on the first attack had stunned him. Fuck, you hissed, quickly ducking around behind him and trying to get in closer as fast as you could. Blood colored the side of your face. You could tell his counterattacks were slowing down too. The thick air had to be getting to him by now, paired with the solid hit you landed on his torso. And you hadn't even made a proper attack on him yet. But still, Todoroki was very abrupt when it came to quickly growing a protective wall of ice to separate the two of you. He had to put space between you. He needed a moment to breathe. The oxygen seemed to be so scarce. Where had you come from? He thought. He was still on the floor, trying to stand up. In quick retaliation, you placed both of your hands up to the wall of ice and in a controlled manner, engaged your quirk in your fingertips. The ice barrier immediately broke and melted, tumbling down so fast that it looked like it had exploded. Once it fell, you caught a glimpse of the expression on the boy's face. You recognized it indisputably. His eyes were almost completely closed. He had been trying to fend you off, while he was facing something he couldn't even explain. He was exhausted. Oh, you muttered to yourself. You immediately put an end to your attacks, meaning that he did the same, not that he had much choice. You crouched down beside him and pouted. Todoroki softened his exterior, as he thought you were coming to help him. Sort of hard to breathe, isn't it? And the very moment you mentioned that, Todoroki realized that it was indeed very hard to breathe. He was losing consciousness. What had you done? Todoroki coughed again, desperately trying to figure out your quirk. Scared, he looked up at you to find you grinning from ear to ear. That's what I like to call a side effect. You thinned your eyes, watching closely as the boy's fingers twitched and his blinks became slower and slower. Eventually they stopped altogether. Todoroki Shouto lay unconscious on the floor in front of you. You thought to yourself. That was faster than expected. You stood back up, cracking your knuckles while glaring right at one of the closest cameras. I win, you said calmly, directly into the lens. And prepare a medic, he's probably got cyanide poisoning. Dead meat. Chapter text. Today, myself, All Might, and one other pro hero will be supervising an ulterior training exam outside campus for you all. You felt a change around you as the class energy immediately picked up. The room intensified. Rescue training. Aizawa claims clearly, holding out a rescue card. Disasters, shipwrecks, and everything in between. You'll all be placed in different scenarios that you'll have to face if you want to go pro one day. You sat back leisurely against your chair, in front of your explosive classmate, Bakugo Katsuki. You felt excited too. To experience real training with the real pros was definitely going to at least slightly benefit your rescuing skills. You had little to no training in that particular field. Everything was starting to feel a little more on track. You can choose if you wish to wear your hero outfits or not. Since the event will be held off campus, meet me at the bus in 15 minutes. Hey. Zipping up your black hoodie, you inattentively looked to find the voice. I noticed you don't really have a hero costume. Any particular reason for that? One of the girls in your class, you vaguely recalled watching her match on the surveillance cameras during the mock battle. Her name was Kyokujiro. Her costume kind of reminded you of what you would wear to concerts back when you were around 10 to 12 years old. Pretty cool that she's embracing what she wants to wear, despite it being a hero suit. Props to her. I rate it by the way, she said. You offered a blasé, half smirk. Just haven't made one yet. Still searching for the right material. Kyoko watched you pack up your bag and really wanted to dig deeper with specific, personal questions about what your quirk actually was as did everyone in the class who had watched you overpower the top student. But she successfully resisted the urge. For now, it was enough to have finally spoken to you. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗵𝗧, she muttered. Just, by the way. You nod, swinging your leg up onto the table to lace up your flat shoes. Yuna Y/N. By the way. The bus ride was relatively short-lived. Luckily, because you weren't sure how much longer you could stand the awkward silence after you had been forced to sit beside Todoroki. Granted, it wasn't awkward when you had first sat down. But once Todoroki made an attempt at asking you a question at the very same time that you put your earphones in, then the tension really kicked in. My name is 13. As you probably know, my quirk is called Black Hole. You couldn't help but slowly zone out, staring off into the distance while conjuring ideas and theories as to what would consist of this rescue training. There were certainly better things to think about, rather than how amazing 13's quirk was. Instinctively, you start stretching your arms and rolling your shoulders. My quirk is naturally quite destructive, which I'm sure some of you can relate to. Although you were at the very back of the class, your ears pricked up, I am a perfect example of how you can use even destructive quirks for good, if you have the right mindset. 13's enthusiasm echoed through the stadium dome. For example, I normally stick to rescue missions because of the nature of my quirk. This is what being a hero is all about. You found those words hitting close to home. What 13 was talking about was typically a large struggle in your life, finding the balance in using violence and destruction for good, somehow. But 13 was a good example, as her quirk was all about sucking the life out of something and turning it to dust. That being significantly more destructive than your quirk, right from the get-go. And 13 had made a name for herself as one of the most admirable rescue pro heroes of your generation. Although your face was blank and withheld emotion, you were feeling a whirlpool of sentiment. There's always hope. Bravo! Bravo! You joined into the class chant, but only within your own head. A split second later, the huge ring lights illuminating around the circumference of the dome suddenly sparked and lost power. Some of the students gasped in confusion. You glanced around quickly, searching for the source. It wasn't long until you noticed a large purple mist portal start to generate in the center of the arena. It swirled and emanated a dark, horrific static sound. Once it was full size, you and the rest of the class observed motionlessly as figures began to emerge. Aizawa stepped forward. 13. Gather the students and head for the exit. Your eyes ticked over to your teacher. He was the switch, for you at least. Aizawa was the reason you immediately knew that this had nothing to do with the training. His personality had taken a full 180, as he was suddenly riled up and had immediately taken a protective stance against the apparent threats. Why aren't the intruder alarms going off? 13. Radio for backup. What is it, Aizawa-sensei? One of the students who had yet to be named stepped forward. Is this part of the training? There was a long silence. You knew what was coming. Those are villains, he growled. And no. Beware. The imminent threat is very real. The class sank into a feeling of deep, debilitating dread. Some of them weren't sure if this was planned or not, but you had no doubt. You recognized one of them. Aizawa was quick to leap into action. He flew off the edge of the staircase, shooting towards the small sea of enemies. And the battle began. He immediately started taking down villain after villain. He completely diminished the firing squad in just seconds. You hadn't seen someone move with so much skill in a long time. Since the alarms aren't going off, one of them are probably jamming the signal. Todoroki discerned to the group. Kaminari, can you radio for help? Sure thing, he assured, before suddenly frowning. Oh, wait, my signal is blocked too. 13 suddenly insisted that the class head for the exit, leading them that way. You were frozen solid, watching the blinding precision and expertise that Aizawa was quick to demonstrate, taking down the wall of enemies. It was amazing. You wanted... Come on. Someone grabbed onto your arm, pulling you away from the action. We have to move away. Confused, you swung around to get a glimpse of who had been bold enough to grab a hold of you like that. Oh, the green-haired boy, Midoriya Izuku. You snatched your arm away from his grip. Don't touch me. It was a genuine warning. You just didn't want to hurt him because he touched you without warning. You blatantly ignored his quick, profuse, loud apologizing, and decided to jog and catch up with the others. However, you were all shortly stopped in your tracks. This is bad news. The purple warp portal entity blocked the class from exiting, spreading into an enormous version of his prior self. He chuckled, introducing himself. I'm afraid I can't let you do that. But at least let me introduce myself. We are the League of Villains. We're here to dat. You flinched slightly as two of the students could be seen flying at the portal, quick to surge perfect attacks upon the brute. One of them was the explosive 𝗵𝗃 Katsuki, accompanied by brave 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃. But the mist evaded. As soon as they moved in on him, the huge purple cloud moved and swallowed you and your entire class, completely destroying your field of vision. Chaos ensued. An odd sensation consumed your body as the dramatic screaming and yelling from your other classmates turned to silence. As soon as the black fog cleared from your vision, you were able to cough. You landed flat on your stomach, almost being winded after the disorientating change. You had been dropped randomly in a nearby building. A teleportation quirk? You weren't too surprised. You were just glad the mist didn't equal immediate death. A quick look out the window to your left assured that you were still inside the 𝗧𝗏, meaning anyone else who had been sucked into the portal was probably also still inside. But as the smoke faded and you quickly stood to your feet, you started to realize that maybe this wasn't as simple as finding your way back to the staircase. Because another portal had appeared in the room with you. A portal that spawned an army of 4 villains, right into the small space with you. Damn. Feeling frantic, but looking composed, you glanced around the room. No one else was there with you. You turned back to face the thugs. Who the fuck do you dickwads think you are? The vast, odd-looking villains were quick to charge at you. You observed a small variety of quirks fire up. With 2 heavy steps, you widened your stance, lowered your head, and grinned up at them. Okay then. Death it is. The feeling of your quirk activating in a larger scale already started getting you riled you. You couldn't help but smile. You pulled your arms into your chest, and a bright orange/blue glow started emanating from the center of your palms. A fast-rising sound of energy loudly surging filled the room. The villains slowed down, almost unsure if they wanted to move forward. Threatened. But you were more than ready for this. You knew that you could take them all out in one fell swoop. The greenish-bluish glow quickly grew much brighter and louder. The villains were ready to turn and run away. The iris of your eyes had turned bright purple. You beamed with passion. One of the villains started firing some sort of small energy surges at you. You winced as a sudden gash opened on your leg, at the hands of one of their quirks. You looked up at the one who had fired it, to see him smiling proudly. Your glare was more than threatening. You're dead meat. You widen your arms out, and as you do, your whole body bursts into a crazy inferno of green and blue flames. Eat shit. The green orb in the center of your chest implodes. The explosion immediately takes out the entire 3rd floor, breaking every window and sending fire outside to slowly eat up the side of the building. A strong shockwave vibrates the entire building. New girl. Chapter text. What was that? 𝗧𝗏𝗃 blinks in the general direction of the building that had exploded and caught on fire from the 3rd floor. Gosh, I hope there isn't villains with that much power. She turned back around and continued trying to help 13. Mediocre explosions from the lower level of your building caught your attention. You could hear it. Faintly, but you knew the voice. You looked down at the floor. It was definitely one of the students. With that one move, you had easily polished off everyone on this floor, so you were safe to move down. Unsure if who you heard yelling was in trouble or not, you crouched down to the floor and placed both your palms against it. You closed your eyes and unleashed the blistering fire from your hands into the floorboards, making short work of it. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 held an explosion against one of the opponents with their head down, but paused after hearing a weird sound. Shut up, shitty hair. What's that? Kirishima looked up. I don't know. And you heard that explosion upstairs. The 2 of them, alongside the remaining villains, paused and turned their heads to face the loud sizzling sound coming from one corner of the roof. Whoever it is, I'm going to rip them to fucking shreds. Everyone stood absolutely still, completely unsure of what was going to happen. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 could barely breathe because of the tension. He knitted his brows, only growing angrier with each passing second. The violent ferocity of the moment bubbles to a head. Suddenly, a figure melts through the roof. It falls and lands on its feet. The new girl? With one hand balancing you on the ground, you slowly straightened your legs to stand up fully. You moved slowly, radiating nothing but confidence and power. You rose up and rolled your shoulders back. Bakugo and his partner couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was completely unexpected. Your body was completely engulfed in green and blue flames. The flames were so bright that your body looked almost like just a silhouette. Your eyes shone through the glare so intently that Bakugo felt himself growing more uncomfortable. Just after entering the room, you had made the temperature of the level almost unbearably hot for everyone else. Not to mention, you looked like the epitome of a villain in that moment. "What are you doing just standing there?" you mumbled. Bakugo blinked himself back to life. The fuck are you doing? Coming to save your dumbass, I guess." Bakugo lets off another explosion from his palm, incapacitating the opponent he had on the floor. Like hell. "Hey, Yuna, right? That was such a sick entry." Kirishima held up a strong arm and smiled widely. "You had me so fired up." You disengaged your quirk, and the bright flames fell. You looked towards him. "What's your name?" "Ijuru Kirishima," he stated proudly. I should have introduced myself sooner." You nodded briefly, but it wasn't exactly good timing for further introductions. Not only were there still villains to take down in the room, but there were more on the way. "Well, let's fucking do this shit," you mumble. "We need to get back, so let's make this quick." Both of your hands sparked and lit on fire. "That's the spirit," Kirishima yelled out, engaging his hardening quirk and stepping forward. "You in, Bakugo?" "I don't give a fuck what you extras do," he grumbled lowly. "I'm gonna murder these bastards and then I'm going after the misty fuck." You nod. "Me too." "Hey, don't think you can follow me." You shook your head and turned back to face the border of enemies that the two boys had been holding back. "You two can just watch if you want. This will be over quickly. Keep it contained, Y/N. Only do what's necessary to immobilize your opponents. Like hell, I even need your stupid help. Fuck off." The three of you formed into an unspoken line of attack, facing the others. You cracked your knuckles, which were nice and warm. You scoffed. "Whatever." You turned your head left and right. "But, just a friendly warning, don't breathe in too much." Kirishima looked to his left at you, where you crouched over in a strong attack position. You paused for one more moment, looking at him with a smirk. "The blue fire is toxic to inhale." With that, you launched off your back foot, propelling forward with a subtle boost, and opened your attack with a grand punch. Kirishima charged forward too. The first victim fell to the ground. You spun around instantly, fly-kicking another across the face. "WHOI. Don't think you can have all the fun, dumb girl. I'll kill you too if I have to." Bakugo finally launched too, firing off immediate attacks and swinging heavy punches at the others. It was like the villains had been standing there waiting to be detoyed. They were so weak. The three of you fought with smiles on your faces, as if it really were just endurance training. 15 minutes later. "Okay, we made short work of those useless bastards." "Hey, Bakugo," Kirishima near whispered. "She kinda sounded like you." Just then. "Shut up." Bakugo refused, letting off small explosions in his palms. "She sounded nothing like me." "Anyway, good job, guys. We make a good team," he smiled widely. "Let's move on, there's probably people that could use our help." "I'm not here to help out the damn extras. They can help themselves." Kirishima glanced at Bakugo, completely dumbfounded, because that was, in fact, exactly why he was here in the hero course training. "But what if?" "Don't underestimate them. They can handle their own damn selves," he said forcefully. "And if we go after the stupid warp guy, we can stop their way of escaping." "Hey, Bakugo, that's actually a good idea." You weren't paying attention to their conversation. You had caught a glimpse of something out the window. You squinted your eyes, barely able to see. Clearly, you could identify your teacher, Aizawa, stagnant and beaten on the floor. He was being restrained by a large villain, who seemed to have overbearing strength. You leapt to action, ditching the others. Your body vaulted smoothly through the window and you sprinted towards the commotion. You weren't sure what you were going to do against this guy, but you wanted to kill him. But wait, there's others. In the water's edge, you caught a glimpse of one of the members of the so-called League of Villains, reaching his hand out to meet the face of one of your classmates. It had to be an attack. Is that Midoriya? Damn it, why is that girl just sitting there? Even Midoriya was standing still. There was 3 of them in the water. Fuck. You knew deep down that you had to prioritize their safety, as they were clearly more vulnerable in the situation. Although, Aizawa might already be dead. Your legs pump back and forth as you fly towards the battleground. Who should you save? Shit. Shit. Can you save all of them? A loud impact from the water changes your mind. Midoriya had pulled some sort of powerful attack on the big guy. Fuck, where did that thing come from? It moves so fast. Some kind of humanoid. Your eyes darted around, trying to assess the situation as quickly as you could. You were still running towards them, but slowed down when you saw the larger beast easily withstand an enormous, quirk-related punch from Midoriya. He's gonna die. I have to save him. Words and concerns ran laps and laps through your mind, and your legs were moving on their own at that stage. Suddenly, a huge explosion from the entry of the arena catches your attention. Not a moment later, All Might appeared. Emerging from a cloud of smoke, the symbol of peace made his grand entry. He seemed to be yelling out some words of inspiration to the students around him, but the distance between you meant that you couldn't hear. Do not worry, for I am here. Never mind. He's loud enough. He bursted into action in an instant. Your eyes couldn't keep up with All Might's body as he darted around the area, zip-zapping past and picking up every vulnerable person. He also took out all the weaker villains standing in the way. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. You kept running towards the conflicts. Young Midoriya, you take Eraserhead and get him to safety. All Might boomed. You two go as well. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗏 and Mineta Minoru went along with him, making their way up to the entry where the others were. I have this handled. It was only a few seconds before All Might charged at the main boss, after he claimed that his Nomu had come to destroy All Might. In the moment before All Might could reach his target, the largest villain steps in, taking the full force to its chest. Clearly, it wasn't some regular quirk that the Nomu had. The Nomu was a full-on creature. A creature that you wanted to fuck up. The punch that All Might inflicted immediately knocked you off your feet. Holy shit, so much power. You quickly regained your footing. You saw the Nomu was pushed back, but you were in earshot now, and could hear what was being said. Nomu's quirk is regeneration. He was created to destroy you, symbol of peace. Your heart sunk. Although you didn't care too much for the hero hierarchy, you couldn't deny the fact that All Might had been the one to keep the city safe by single-handedly maintaining the balance between harmony and justice. He couldn't be brought down. You knew what it would mean for society. You dreaded the very thought, but you knew that it would invite a butterfly effect upon the nation, triggering an inevitable downward spiral. It would be a near-instant descent into chaos. With that thought, you attacked. Blasting heavy hot flames from the soles of your feet, you instantly catapulted forward. You quickly closed the gap between you and the conflicting, loudly jousting group, flying towards them faster than they could see coming. A path of smoke was left behind you as you blasted towards them. When you reached the group, you landed on the ground, rolling over your back to then land on your feet, hunched down low. You had so much rage and adrenaline. You shoved past the fighting line, right in front of the Nomu. All Might, get back, you shouted, stepping in front of him. Without a moment of hesitation, you held your arms towards the beast and unleashed a huge-scale fire blast right over the Nomu's body, covering it in blazing inferno. The fiery explosion swallowed that entire corner of the arena, blasting everyone around back, with a mighty aftershock broken. Chapter text. The smoke cleared slowly. The surrounding people got back to their feet, brushing off the smoke, overwhelmingly astonished by what had just happened. As the smoke moved out of the way, the Nomu's huge figure emerged and stood proud in front of you. Minus some fairly major exterior burns, it was completely untouched. Your stomach sank to the floor. Amazingly, your largest firebomb attack had absolutely no physical effect on the huge monster. After checking behind you, You noticed that All Might had also not been affected by the explosive backlash. He had his arm covering his face, but his body hadn't been bulldozed back by the force, like everyone else's had. The warp quirk, Kurogiri, had protected the boss, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 from the explosion by covering him and redirecting the blast elsewhere. Your hands shook. Shit. It really had no effect. All Might stared down at you for a moment, fully taken aback by what had just happened. His shocked expression slowly melted into a gleaming grin. Thank you for the bravery, young Yuna. He placed a heavy hand on your shoulder in support. You bought me some time. You looked back at the 𝗵𝗄 and noticed that his skin that had just been burned and diseased quickly started regenerating. But don't worry anymore, for I, the symbol of peace, have got this handled. He put his hands on his hips, towering over you. His smile shone over the cloud of doubt set upon everyone at the USJ. 𝗬𝗪𝗢𝗏 gasped with both hands over her mouth. Oh my god, what was that? 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗏 stared down at the scene on the other side of the arena. That was Yuna Y/N? No way. The explosion. Why yeah, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 stuttered. She just jumped in front of All Might. Are you serious? Oh my god. They were both frozen in shock. They had never seen an explosion of green, blue, and orange fire. It was completely stunning. Protected, All Might. 𝗬𝗪𝗢𝗏 was crouched down beside 13, but finally stood up to get a better view of the aftermath. Gosh, I really hope 𝗧𝗏𝗂 returns with help soon. This is getting scary. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 looked down to her friend at her side. He will, I know it. Don't worry, just be brave. All Might figured that he could wear the 𝗵𝗄 down and moved in for an intense reverse suplex attack. You stood back and waited, as the smoke began to clear. When you could see him again, All Might was pretzeled in Kurogiri's portal, with the 𝗵𝗄 grabbing him at the waist. Blood stained his shirt. It was bad. You were just about to move in, stepping forward and setting your body alight, before a path of ice took you by surprise. You disengaged your quirk. The ice crawled over to the portal, swallowing the 𝗵𝗄 in ice and freezing it solid. You looked to the culprit and found 𝗧𝗪𝗪𝗀. Nice move. Not a moment later, Bakugo and Kirishima finally arrived on scene too. It wasn't long before Midoriya also arrived, clearly looking to help aid All Might's peril. Suddenly, you had a whole team against the 𝗵𝗄, Kurogiri, and Shigaraki. The 6 of you versus the 3 of them. As Midoriya rashly charged forward at the attacker, Kurogiri suddenly appeared in front, prepared to warp him. Your body seemed to burst to action on its own, as you leapt forward. You didn't know what you were gonna do. But it didn't matter anyway. Bakugo caught you off guard, flying right past you, directly at the attacker and blasting Kurogiri out of the way. Shit, you dropped to the floor and somersaluted to land back on your feet. Bakugo exposed the main body through Kurogiri's mist, making his weakness obvious. He had him pinned to the floor by the armor on his body. You try to move, I'll blow your body to shit. He had a huge grin on his face. Shigaraki was clearly disappointed in Kurogiri for allowing Bakugo to expose his weakness. And on top of that, he had let 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 escape, meaning the pros would be alerted of their presence. I should kill you, he muttered, scratching at his neck anxiously. Kids these days, so strong, they make the League of Villains look weak. You and the others stared at him as he trailed off in thought. I guess the pros will be arriving soon too. His voice was quiet, strained and croaky. He sounded deeply, so it's over now, and 𝗵𝗄 retrieve Kurogiri for me. The 𝗵𝗄 rose to his feet, breaking out of Todoroki's ice restraints with ease. You could see how confused Todoroki was as he watched on. The 𝗵𝗄 lost an arm and a leg with the ice, but regrew it with some sort of insanely fast regeneration quirk. In a flash, the 𝗵𝗄 moved, flying right past you and the others, directly at Bakugo. You couldn't even follow it with your eyes, let alone step in to stop the 𝗵𝗄 from attacking Bakugo. Move. There wasn't enough time. The 𝗵𝗄 had already explosively freed Kurogiri and returned to his place beside Shigaraki. A huge trail of destruction blasted off and led all the way back to a large wall, splitting it in two with the immense impact. Your eyes were wide with shock. You held your breath. Could Bakugo survive that blow? Although he seemed to be strong, he wasn't immortal. You felt your body freeze. How could you fix this? What could you do? The 𝗵𝗲 was impossibly fast. But before you could even begin to conjure an answer, you noticed 𝗵𝗃𝗲 on the ground laying by your feet. 𝗵𝗃𝗲? How'd you dodge that quickly? You were thinking the exact same thing that Kirishima said. EH? I didn't. You moved your attention back to the wall. All Might had taken the hit. He was faster than the 𝗵𝗲. You and the others watched silenced as Shigaraki went on to explain a long monologue about how heroes were supposedly the primary reason for violence across the whole world. TSK. That's rich. All Might claimed with passion and drive that Shigaraki and the League of Villains had no means for making a claim like that, since they had no noble cause. All Might maintained his composure, but you could see him crumbling slowly. It concerned you deeply. You couldn't control the thoughts in your head. You were panicking. You didn't know how to resolve this situation. Kurogiri, 𝗵𝗲, destroy All Might. Shigaraki gurgled. I'll handle the kids. You turned your attention to him. Oh yeah, you called. Kurogiri, Shigaraki, and the other students looked at you. Your iris illuminated a sudden bright purple, a moment before your body was consumed in thick flames again. You'll have to go through me first, Ashtray. The students watched dumbfounded, consumed in deep shock. What is she doing? They thought. A split second later, Shigaraki sprinted toward you with his hands flexed. All you knew was that if he touched you, it would be bad. All you had to do was evade. Easy. You took one step back, readying yourself. Alright guys, Kirishima called, engaging his quirk. Looks like we're fighting after all. The other three stood behind you, prepared for battle. All of them engaged their quirks, firing up. It isn't long after that All Might fires off, barreling toward the 𝗵𝗲. Your power was shock absorption, not nullification. That means there's a limit to what you can take, right? A massive first hit sends a shock wave that throws you all back. You put your arms out, trying to maintain your balance. Shigaraki was blown away in the fight. When he found his footing, he warned All Might about 𝗵𝗲's strength, being designed to take him on at his 100%. That didn't concern All Might. Despite having hit his limit long ago, All Might almost immediately surpassed his 100% maximum to forcefully bypass the limit of the 𝗵𝗲's endurance. They traded insane blows and battled hard across the 𝗧�ြ. You and the others could do nothing but watch, as you all tried desperately to withstand the intense shockwaves that each of All Might's hit throws at you. Shigaraki kept his distance, consumed in the concern as he started to panic, watching the showdown between the two. Each monstrous strike, even from halfway across the field, pushed heavy wind backlash on you and kept you and the others from intervening with the fight. After throwing 𝗵𝗲 onto the ground from high in the air, you and the others could not disguise your astonishment. All Might landed proudly and gave his final speech to the remainder of the criminals. You may have already heard this before, but remember to always go beyond, and plus ultra. All Might delivered his biggest dynamic smash, instantly sending the villain flying out to smash a hole through the wall of the USJ and fly off far into the sky. Although your heels were dug into the sand, the blast from All Might's final move sent you tumbling across the ground, smashing into someone blindly. A grunt escaped your chest as the two of you flew back and rolled across the ground. Todoroki quickly stopped the fast momentum with a small ice wall block and turned his back to it to take the force on his own, while holding on to you. The two of you bounced off and felt the wind leave your lungs. "Why, you okay?" he choked. You quickly stood up. Holy fuck. You were astounded by All Might's power. "I'm good, you good?" You reached your hand down to help Todoroki stand back up, as the rest of the group also tired to compose themselves. You had never seen so much raw power before. He beat the shock absorption right out of that guy. Kirishima exclaimed, amazed. Imagine having that kind of brute strength. Bakugo mumbled. The experience left you thinking deeply about what being a true hero was really about. You would be lying if you denied how it changed your perspective on it. The way All Might was clearly struggling, but never let anyone else think for a moment that he wouldn't be able to save them. He was hope in human form. Truly, the symbol of peace. What amazed you the most about him was that All Might's smile had never once dropped. You wanted to be able to make others feel the way he made you feel. All Might held his position as the smoke slowly cleared away from him. I really have gotten weaker. Back in my prime, 5 hits would have been enough to knock that guy out, All Might said, almost laughing. But just now, it took over 300. Midoriya's jaw dropped to the floor. Then, All Might turned to face the 2 remaining villains. Now it's over for you villains. Surrender. I'm sure we all want this to be over with quickly. His voice was strained, his body making a burning, sizzling sound. You stood near the 4 other boys, watching as Shigaraki has a clear inward battle about why All Might didn't seem any weaker. What's wrong? Why aren't you coming? All Might said to him. Come and get me if you can. Todoroki turned to face the rest of you. As expected, it looks like there's no need for us to fight. All Might has this handled. Midoriya clearly wasn't convinced. Neither were you. Hey Midoriya. Yuna. We should get out of here. Kirishima called. We'll be no help to them if we get taken hostage instead. Plus, there's probably others we can still help. All Might made another attempt at intimidating Kurogiri and Shigaraki. Tamura. Kurogiri said, please calm down. You thinned your eyes at him. Kurogiri went on to explain that All Might was probably highly injured, and that the various low-tier thugs could probably aid in a battle against him too. So with the remaining minutes left, they had a chance at defeating All Might. You thought his idea was stupid. Had he forgotten about you? Suddenly, Shigaraki and Kurogiri both charged off at All Might. And he hesitated. But before you even had time to do anything, Midoriya disappeared from in front of you, suddenly appearing right next to the 2 villains. Shit, he's so fast. But as he aimed his fist at Kurogiri's main form, you gasped as you noticed Shigaraki reaching through the portal to touch him. The 4 of you were frozen solid. Hey, Midoriya. Bang. The sound of a gun throws your attention as you look to the sound. The pros, they're here. Sorry for being late. The mouse principal Nizu yells out over the entire USJ, but I gathered everyone that was available. The crowd of pros set out immediately, quick to take down what was left of the villains that had started waking up. Shigaraki had been shot 4 times by the one hero, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, at the top of the mountain. He had fallen. Seconds later, 13 appeared again. She started to suck what was left of Kurogiri and Shigaraki into her suit, to turn them to dust. You could see Kurogiri wrapping around Shigaraki. He was going to warp them away. You couldn't stop. Your impulse. Your legs had started moving on their own, running towards 13th's windy current. No, don't let them get away. You weren't sure what you were going to do, but you couldn't just stand there while they got away. Your body wouldn't let you. Yuna, stop. Not knowing what else to do, Todoroki ran towards you with an arm outstretched. You set your palms alight, reaching into 13th stream, aiming for Shigaraki. I'll see you soon. Shigaraki gurgled. Stop, bastard. Bakugo blasted towards you with huge explosions before he brutally tackled you sideways, throwing you to the floor. You rolled away. 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏, he puffed heavily beside you. Fucking dumbass. In the intensity and panic of the prior moment, Todoroki had shot a spurt of ice to try and stop you. But it had caught only your hand. With your right arm, you shakily prop yourself up, looking behind you to see the villains already gone. Fuck. Relax, dumbass. Bakugo stood up. We'll track them down later. Don't get yourself killed for those extras. Then you looked down to your left arm. It was throbbing with a hot, punishing pain. You held onto your forearm, staring flatly at your wrist. Even with some ice still stuck to it, your wrist was clearly broken. You glanced up at Todoroki, who had just realized what he had done. Character summary. Chapter text. Name Y/N Yuna. Quirk, Hellfire. Hero name, Blaze. Power 4.7/5. Speed 4.1/5. Technique 4 of 5. Intelligence 3.8 out of 5. Cooperation 1/5. About Y/N. Typically very conservative and mellow. Much like Shouto, she likes to keep to herself and keep her friends limited for the sake of protecting her peace. Like anyone, she has moments where she veers from her regular persona, whether it's acting uptight and impulsive or peaceful and liberal. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲's biggest perk is her extreme dedication to training over the passing years. After she was separated from her family, she didn't have much to entertain herself with. So, she started training herself. Her physical strength and endurance without her quirk alone is more than impressive. Then, she becomes standout with the addition of her high-tier power quirk. Likes: coffee early mornings, boxing, the city at night, cats, fitness, fashion, shouto. Dislikes: assholes. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲's quirk, Hellfire, generates an ultra-hot, poisonous fire from anywhere in her body. Can pinpoint where she wants to disperse her power from with immense accuracy, also able to control the level of heat and the explosiveness. The density of poison in the fire dispersed is not as easily controlled, but she has a grip on it to some extent. She learns more as the story progresses. The flames, if left to burn or had burned on a large scale, can fill up a room with carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide, both deadly gases. The poisonous fire works by creating a perfect blend of all the necessary compounds and chemicals right in her bloodstream, meaning she can also amplify or nullify that by choice. There are many different ways to use the power, but most consist of destruction or assisting mobility. Overuse of the quirk results in a weakening of her overall energy. In extreme cases, she'll be hit with spells of dizziness, nausea, sometimes passing out or getting blood noses from lack of necessary minerals. The main risk with 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲's quirk is injuring or poisoning the people around her, including teammates, during intense conflicts. That risk is the primary reason for her obsessive training regime. Obviously, she is not affected by the poison or the heat in her fire. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲's primary weaknesses: accidental friendly fire. Overbearing water, quirks, or huge bodies of water can exhaust her quirk faster than anything else. Brute force if contact is made. Heat-proof restraints. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲's hero suit. 𝗧𝗏𝗵 engineered the suit herself and sent the blueprint to the funded creators. The bodysuit itself covers 92% of 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲's skin, designed to protect and aid. It isn't flashy. It's all black. The suit is composed of a handcrafted carbon fiber/synthetic polymer hybrid base, incredibly heat-resistant, with small pores all over the surface area of the suit, making for an easier release of the fire. Lightweight and flexible. A muzzle face mask rests down on her collar, which she can pull over her face or offer to others around her to shield them from the poisonous gas. The large hoodie that she sometimes wears over her suit is mostly for comfort, or to keep her throwing knives that she sometimes straps to her body, well hidden. Her suit could almost be regular street attire. Her shoes are simple flat running shoes, carefully modified to disperse crazy blasts from the soles of her feet. Covered in various straps and holsters, 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲's suit is designed to aid her quirk in every way. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲. Obviously, please feel free to imagine your costume however you'd like with whatever colors and designs you want. I couldn't really find anything that matched what I wanted perfectly, but I imagine it's something kind of similar to this. Not that this is really that important, though. I'm just on a road trip and way too invested in this 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Chapter text. You watched with a contented blank stare out the window as the sun slowly started to rise and wake up the city, with all its inhabitants. You were home, enjoying the sunrise and sipping your hot coffee slowly. You wore a tight black singlet, showcasing in the beautiful morning light your chiseled back and strong arm muscles. You had a good pump from your pre-dawn upper body workout. It wasn't as good as it could have been, because of the plaster cast on your left wrist, being a slight disadvantage on the equipment. But you still felt good. Energized. After happily finishing the last of your second coffee, you decided to go take a long shower. It was a good thing May hadn't come home from her date last night, for many reasons. The primary one being that she wouldn't be disturbed by your obnoxiously loud music blasting through the halls as you try to scold your skin off in the shower. After 30 minutes, you stepped out and your skin was pink from the hot water. For some reason, hot water always made your skin pink, although your body could easily withstand temperatures high enough to slaughter whole towns. Hot water warmed your skin when even fire sometimes couldn't. Weird. The classic Korean band, 𝗬𝗏, blasted on your large Bluetooth speaker, filling the halls of the home with a gentle, melodic tune. It was a beautiful start to your morning. You loved trying to harmonize with the main singer's voice. He was so lovely to listen to. Humming happily, you start to ready yourself for the day, and picked an outfit. It was finally Saturday, marking the first completed week at your new school. So far, you could easily tell how the school UA was able to breed such influential heroes, as the training tactics were well thought out. The teachers were overqualified, if anything. Even the lazy, messy teachers like your homeroom teacher, 𝗧𝗏, left you completely blown away by his pure skill and amazing resolve once you saw him in action. You wondered briefly about how he was doing in the hospital. It was definitely that experience at the USJ that had opened your eyes to what it meant to be a true hero. That was your first time experiencing power of that much force in person. And to see firsthand the breathtaking conviction of All Might and Eraserhead, it was nothing short of eye-opening. You felt more excited about the hero course. But for now, as you pulled up your black baggy jeans, you were more grateful for it to be the weekend. You planned to head to the Plaza Mall in the city and buy yourself a treat and some new books for class, which you hadn't thought about until it was too late. You didn't know exactly what you were going to do all day, but you would go along with whatever came at you. You did have a shift at your part-time hospitality job at 5 p.m., but that was a long ways away. Over your sports bra, you pulled a plain white singlet, and over that you pushed your arms into a baggy dark brown zipper hoodie. You put on your classic black DC shoes and a sling backpack. Everything you needed was inside the backpack, including things like your work apron, laptop, and bus card. Enthusiastically, you headed out the front door and locked it behind you. It was starting to get colder in Japan, so it was a good thing your quirk was what it was. You kept yourself warm easily. You were happy and toasty and warm in your chair, despite having been inactive and slowly drinking an iced pink boba tea. You sat outside the bubble tea restaurant, minding your business and researching on your laptop what the most explosive and most accessible powdered substance was, trying to find where you could attain it. You had been looking into another support item to help your accuracy at longer distances. After an hour or two, you had started to feel slight cramping in your eyes, since you had forgotten to bring your glasses. So you put the laptop screen down and leant back into your chair. The streets were pretty busy for a regular weekend. 2 hours earlier, you walked slowly. You were in no rush. You had heard about a new cafe and were interested in trying the products out, as your previous favorite boba stop had been shut down. The only downside to the spot was that it was right beside a large hospital. That meant that there would probably be constant loud noises of ambulances coming and going. But not only that, the general feeling of any hospitals is quite bitter. It reminded you of blood and death and pain. You didn't like it, though you were willing to try anyway. There was a gentle, cool breeze, picking up your hair as you walked. Your hands were tucked safely in your pockets. Your eyes were bored, but you felt calm. Suddenly, a microphone being shoved in your face rips you out of your serenity, stunning you. You briskly look to the culprits, 3 people. One with a camera, one a mic, and a woman as the apparent interviewer. Hey, you're a student at UA, right? Her smile is wide and keen, quick to diminish your privacy. You were at the USJ attack with the hero course. Her invasiveness was almost paralyzing. Lamely, you glared at the woman, then at the camera, then back to the woman. What happened at the USJ villain attack? Were there any injured students? Can you give us some insight? Her eyes darted down to your arm where the white cast poked out of your sleeve. She gasped. Were you injured? You stared flatly, offering her nothing. Get lost. You turned on your heel, walking away from the small group. Wait. Just answer a few of our questions. Unbothered, you placed your earphones back in and continued walking away. You tried to make up for lost amity. God, what assholes. Looking around the streets was something you genuinely enjoyed. Although there was not much you liked about the general masses or lots of people being in one place at once, it was still interesting to observe how people lived their lives from a distance. Suddenly, your eyes catch a glimpse of a certain someone you quickly recognized. That's the boy from my class, Todoroki Shudo. You wondered for a brief moment what he could be up to around this part of town, but the thought was quick to pass. You turned back around, opening your computer up again and shortly going back to your work. That's enough for today. I should head to work. You stood up, stretching out your aching spine and gathering up your supplies from the table. You were happy you hadn't been disturbed during your time at the cafe. It was a nice, relaxing few hours alone. Even the hospital didn't seem to have a damper on your mood, to your delight. You really enjoyed the cooler temperatures, too. Cold wind and air blowing against you was a pleasant alternative to your normally very hot lifestyle. Just as you were tucking your laptop into your sling, you received a gentle tap on your shoulder. You turned to the person, immediately thrown off by the fact that you hadn't noticed them approaching you sooner. Oh, it's the boy. You tilted your head, making eye contact. You took out your earphones. Hello, said Todoroki. Confused and stiff, you thinned your eyes at him. Hey. He took a deep breath, briefly glancing around the area. Then, he tucked his hands into his pockets. I saw you sitting here earlier, and I wanted to come and apologize for what happened to your wrist. He was so soft-spoken. And for the gash on your cheek, too. I went overboard. His general demeanor reminded you a lot of your own. Don't worry about it, you assured briefly. Sorry for beating your ass in the battle trials. He flinched at your words. He probably wasn't very used to hearing that. You wondered if he would walk away after he made his abrupt apology, considering the fact that his conscience should be cleared. But he stood still beside you patiently as you slipped your laptop into its protective case. Can I ask? He paused, glancing down. Why you didn't go to Recovery Girl to heal it after the incident at the USJ? You trailed off in thought, trying to recall the answer to his question. Subconsciously, you held onto your wrist. I did. I think she was busy, or something. He stood still in silence for a moment, clearly thinking hard. She'll be at school on Monday if you want to get it fixed then? You weren't sure why he was insisting on telling you how to deal with your own broken wrist, but you could only assume it was because he felt bad. Yeah, maybe. You finished packing up and swung your pack over your shoulder for it to sit neatly across your back. It was then that you realized that you and the boy had almost perfectly matching outfits. Pretty much the only difference was the color of your jackets. But you even seemed to have the same bag. You weren't sure if he had noticed yet, but you weren't going to bring it up. His silence was throwing you off. You finally grabbed your phone from the table and slid it into your pocket. Todoroki didn't seem like his concerns had been mended. His expression was still troubled. Yeah, like I said, don't worry about it, you mentioned again. You couldn't really pinpoint nor calculate what was going on in his head. His expression was too broad. Okay, thank you. And, I suppose, Todoroki made yet another awkward pause. I should say good job after the USJ. You fought well. Why is he trying to extend this already awkward conversation? What could he possibly gain from talking to you? Thanks, I guess, you muttered bluntly. It was just a shit situation. The teachers are lucky some of us were able to hold our own. You're right, he responded quickly. Anyway, I better be going now. Okay? You almost laughed at how odd the exchange was. See you Monday. He nodded his head and took his leave in the same direction that you were supposed to be heading. So, in respect for that, you stayed put for a few minutes to give him a head start. Then you walked off. You probably had time to grab some food before your shift started. Pork buns. Chapter text. You had never seen the shop so busy. Your store was more like a pop-up food van, but somewhat fixed in its spot in the street. You mainly served food like cold soba noodles or ramen and sides and pork buns. Food like that. And because of the store's low prices, good food, and quick service, it was a popular spot on the weekends. Your job was mostly to take the orders, clean dishes, or move stock outside. There was a nice sitting area outside with some old milk crates where you and your two coworkers would go to have a relaxing cigarette when it was quiet. But quiet was not fit for this night. You had been running around like a madwoman since your shift started 3.5 hours ago. Yuna-chan, your boss called, stirring some beef broth in a wok. He pointed at the gas stove below it that had just turned off. You sighed. Reaching over to the stove, you touched your finger to the gas and the burner relit. It wouldn't affect nor poison the food in the wok because you used only a spark to ignite the gas. You weren't spraying or cooking the food with your poisonous fire, obviously. Order 57, you called out, holding a hot bowl over the counter. The customer came up and took the bowl, giving you the receipt. Enjoy. You really disliked the customer service part of this job. You preferred to work with your head down, out the back. But it's definitely a joint effort. Highs and lows. The next customer comes up. Can I please get a spicy tonkatsu ramen with pork chashu for takeaway? You nod. Just 1,000 yen. The customer paid in cash and you smiled. Your order number is 61. Here's your receipt. The customer took the receipt and left. You had your head down, writing the order onto your pad. The next customer stepped up. What can I get for you? You asked patiently with your head still down. One cold soba noodle. As the customer stuttered, you looked up. Oh, Todoroki? He looked deeply shaken, looking up at you. Why you work here? Todoroki asked. Yeah, I do. Did you want something to eat? You smiled. What can I get for you? I'll have cold soba with beef broth, he muttered, relatively clearly. Cool. That comes to 600 yen. You offered out the 𝗵𝘃𝗲 machine. It won't be long. He looked away as he scanned his card. You handed him his receipt. I'll call out when it's ready. He agreed with a silent nod. Thank you. As he left, you greeted the next customer in line. 15 minutes later, Todoroki's food was ready, and you felt responsible to call it out yourself. 62. He came to collect it faster than you had expected, but you handed it to him with a soft smile and he returned the expression. Then, he headed over to one of your tables to take a seat. It was almost awkward. Although your workplace was a popular food truck, you very rarely had people you knew come to order. Especially since the uniform was a tight singlet and apron. When you were first employed, you had denied the request to wear shorts, avidly insisting on baggy jeans. Ignoring the embarrassment you had about seeing a familiar face at work, you carried on with your duties for the remaining half an hour of your shift. It was over much sooner than you expected. Thank you. You bowed to your other workers, walking towards the back door. Oh, don't forget your dinner, one of them reminded. Oh, true. You grabbed the plastic bag with your name and a smiley face on it. See you tomorrow. You walked out the door and down the step, peering into the bag and feeling excited to eat your food. As you walked around to the front of the store, you noticed Todoroki was still there. You couldn't help but head over to him. You're still going, you asked, looking at his bowl of food. He looked up at you, taking out his earphones and seeming calm and complacent. I finished a while ago. He gestured to the empty bowl. I thought I should wait until your shift finished to thank you properly. To thank me? You almost laughed. I didn't even make the food. I know, but the service was good. You looked around, unsure of what he meant. You had barely said anything to him in your interaction. I guess you're welcome then. Todoroki looked up at you gently, a lot going on behind his eyes. You looked back at him. Want a pork bun? He tilted his head softly, as if asking for further elaboration. A pork bun, you repeated, opening your bag and showing him the contents. I've got lots. A soft smirk infected Todoroki's face. Okay. Sure. Responding, you reached into the bag and grabbed a bun before holding it out to him. Thank you. Your heart beat a little harder than you were used to, watching him take the bun from your hands. It surprised you when he immediately started pulling the bun out of its paper and immediately took a bite out of it. You stared at him as he chewed and swallowed the bite. And he looked up at you again. It's yummy. You let a small chuckle loose. Then, he stood up from his seat and you made room for him to move out. So you're finished now? Yep. I'm heading home now. Which area do you live in? He asked innocently. Few neighborhoods that way, you pointed. I normally just walk. Would you care for some company? You raised your eyebrows, visibly surprised. Oh, why? He hesitated shortly before replying. I just don't want to go home yet. Todoroki explained candidly. It's quite late for you to be walking alone, and I quite enjoy walking anyway. Okay, then. You shrugged your shoulders. I don't need protecting, but sure. Todoroki nodded his head, seeming to appreciate your response. Then, he turned to grab his bag and took another bite of his pork bun. You started walking, and he soon caught up. You walked in silence for a few minutes, happily enjoying the views that the night city had to offer. How's your wrist? You glanced down. Oh, it's fine. Does it hurt? Is that why you waited for me? Did you want to apologize again? You glared at him as you kept walking. Because if that's the case, just turn around here, because I said I'm not bothered. No, that's not it. His voice was soft. He didn't seem bothered by anything. I did just want to thank you. You pursed your lips. That didn't make much sense in your head, but you decided to ignore it. For the next 30 minutes, you and Todoroki talked casually as you walked all the way back to your home. You spoke transiently about everything from how long you had worked at the restaurant to what you wanted out of training to be a hero. You took turns explaining your answers, bouncing back and forth with the details. But just as much as you spent time talking, time was spent walking in simple, serene silence. You loved those moments. Talking wasn't always easy. You were glad Todoroki seemed to feel the same way. By the time you made it home, it was 10:35 p.m. Is this your building? You turned to face him. Yeah. Do you live with your parents? He asked. No, I live with my aunt, you lied. It's good. Todoroki immediately started to wonder why you didn't live with your parents, but decided not to press into it. He knew he wouldn't like it if you had done that to him. His gaze was fixed somewhere in the distance as you looked at him. You poked your tongue into your cheek. I'm gonna have a quick training session in my gym now. You were skeptical at the offer, but thought that he was clearly one to train often, and probably knew what he was doing. If you want to join. His eyes widened. You have a gym in there? I do. It's well equipped too. He looked up the side of the building, lost in thought. His eyes moved slowly. Only if you're still not ready to go home. When he looked back down at you, his gaze had changed to confused and questioning. You're going to work out after just finishing your shift? He asked attentively. Is someone forcing you to do that? You were visibly shocked by that question. What? No. Why? Todoroki looked away again, down to the floor. That's just an exhausting regime. Yeah, maybe, but I'm used to it. Well, that's certainly impressive. But unfortunately, I have quite a busy day tomorrow, so I better get going. He almost seemed embarrassed in his reply. But I appreciate your offer. Maybe we can organize it for another time. Yeah, you replied sheepishly. Well, thanks for walking me. Be safe. Yeah. Thank you. I'll see you Monday. You nod, turning on your heel and heading towards your front door. The whole situation was a little weird, but you tried not to think into it. You had a leg press calling your name. As per your usual, you kept to your own during the minutes of homeroom where Aizawa was normally running behind schedule. But unfortunately, today was different. It was no surprise that the USJ incident was the main topic of conversation with the class. Everyone spoke about their experiences with the different villains and how tough the different zones were. Hagakure was mostly just upset about how she didn't appear to stand out much, as they mentioned the class experience on the news. Did you hear that they apparently captured 72 villains? Yeah, those numbers are crazy. All thanks to Aizawa-sensei and All Might. About 30 seconds ago, Ashido Mina had approached your table, accompanied by Uraraka Ochiko and Tsuyu Ajui. Ashido was the first to talk. Hey, Yuna. We saw your super move that you did on the brain creature. I had no idea your quirk was so cool. Yeah, that explosion was so big. Uraraka joined in, pumping her fists through the air in excitement. How you stepped in to protect All Might. Oh, it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I don't know how that thing survived that hit. I've never seen anyone try to protect All Might like that before. Ribbit. Your explosion was even bigger than Bakuga's, right? Ribbit. You said I'd see you, hoping she would stop there. Oi, there's no way it was bigger than mine. I could do better in my damn sleep. Bakuga screamed at the back of your head, before sitting back down. Plus, the stupid extra would be dead if not for me, anyway. Ashido looked down at you as if asking for confirmation. You mean the villains got away because of you? He jumped forward again, slamming his fists into his desk. You idiot. You put your arm right into 13's attack. Fuck, I should have just let you die. You raised your eyebrows, but weren't too shocked to hear what he was saying. Still looking ahead, refusing to face Bakugo, you caught a glimpse of Midoriya staring your way. When he noticed you look at him, he turned to scribble something down in his notebook. That's too harsh, Bakugo. Kirishima cut him off. Dial it down, bro. Dive whatever, he sat back down, crossing his arms and looking away with a scowl. Stupid extras never know when to say thank you. You finally turned around, briefly meeting eyes with Todoroki, but you quickly turned to look at Bakugo. You glared at him, thank you. You faced back towards the front of the class, a content expression on your face. Pussy, you muttered. He He charged up again. I'm going to destroy you. Just you wait. I eat losers like you for breakfast. I see the extent of your vocabulary is starting to show, you claim. We can settle this another time. Bakugo was ready to blow. But, unfortunately for him, Aizawa soon entered the room, quick to ruin Bakugo's chances at receiving multiple murder and arson charges. What? Aizawa-sensei? Back so soon? The class shouted, nearly deafening you. You had to admit, you were deeply confused to see Aizawa in walking condition, after what his body went through just a handful of days ago. How are his legs even moving? Never mind that. My condition doesn't matter. You students need to focus. You have some serious work to do. Already? Suppose that's the hero course for you. You need to prepare for the UA Sports Festival, he grumbled, with his sleeping bag still on, to give the impression that you were unaffected by the attack. An enormous gasp for air filled the room. That's a totally normal high school event. As class ended, you found yourself needing to act on one impulse you had. As he was picking up his stuff, you poked Midoriya on his shoulder. He quickly spun around, curious and skittish. Midoriya Izuku. Oh, hi, Yuna. He started rubbing the back of his neck anxiously. I should probably apologize again for grabbing onto your arm at the 𝗧𝗪𝗓. I wasn't really thinking straight. That's not why I'm here. Oh, it's not. He tilted his head. What is it then? I was paying close attention to you at the 𝗧𝗪𝗓. Your quirk is quite intriguing to me. So I thought I would ask you if... You took a long pause. Was this wrong? Was he going to feel obliged to say yes? If you would accept to battle me. His eyes doubled in size, his jaw dropping to the floor. What do you mean? Why? His voice was cracking, clearly showcasing his overbearing nerves. I want to see how I can hold up against your type of quirk, you blurted out. There isn't many types I haven't trained to fight, but yours really took me by surprise. I'm just very interested. He was a stuttering, buffering mess for an entire 15 seconds. It's similar to All Might's, isn't it? At the back of the class, Todoroki still hadn't left. He caught wind of what you had said to Midoriya, and his ears pricked up. What? That's not true. No. I don't deserve to be compared to 𝗧𝗪𝗓. It was just an observation. Relax. Right, he chuckled nervously. Well, thank you anyway. That's a huge honor. You kept starting at him flatly. You awaited his response. It'll be a friendly match. If it makes you feel safer, we can have safe words for when you want to stop. That seemed to have convinced him. Sure thing, Yuna-chan, he offered you a bow. It would be a pleasure to experience a friendly fight with you, too. You half smiled. Then returned the bow. Sometime after the sports festival, then? He smiled. His expression had changed to appear much more confident and happy with the outcome of your confrontation. Yeah. You and Midoriya parted ways after that. You headed out of the room and decided to make your way home. The time to train for the sports festival had come. Hey, you hadn't noticed somebody tailing you out of the classroom. Hi, you parroted to Todoroki, after turning to face him. Recovery girl is on campus now, he muttered, pointing at your wrist which was still in a cast. Would you like me to accompany you to her ward? You looked down. Oh, no, don't worry about it. I'll go look for it now. Please, he asked sternly. I feel bad enough for being the one to cause that. I'd appreciate it if you let me at least help you fix it. You looked at him distractedly. It doesn't feel good to see you still walking around with a broken wrist. It feels like a constant reminder of my poor aim. Poor aim, you asked, confused. No, it wasn't that. I just moved my hand in the way of your ice. It's nothing to worry about. I'll go get it fixed now. He softened his gaze again. You couldn't say no. Plus, he obviously knew where the right room was. He would probably save you a few hours of mindless searching by taking you there himself. You can come with me, if it'll ease your frustrations. He nodded quickly, and the two of you promptly started walking down the hall. I'm kind of ashamed that I was well underqualified to make a move like that. Yet, I still tried to stop you. You kept your eyes on the path ahead. You're being way too hard on yourself right now, you murmured sharply. My wrist wouldn't have snapped if Bakugo hadn't body-slammed me. Stop overthinking something like that. He drifted his gaze to somewhere unfixed out the window, as the sun had started to set, projecting a beautiful pinky glow over the school. Okay, he half smiled. I'll do better next time. Improvement. Chapter text. Your previous 2 weeks had been filled with lots of intense full body training. You were grateful to have a fully healed wrist during the process. Morning and night, you used every spare minute you had to train. All sorts of different techniques, focusing mostly on variety and overall strength. In this time, you had managed to gain much better control of understanding and regulating the degree of poison that comes with your fire at any given second. With the slowly improving skill, you came to the revelation that the less poison in your fire, the more it started to turn orange and red in color. The darkest blues and greens equaled the most poisonous. It felt good to slowly be gaining control of something that had stressed you out ever since your quirk manifested. Your favorite and least favorite training activity was what you liked to call the water bucket. The name lacked creativity. All you did was simply submerge your body in a cauldron filled with room temperature water. With both arms in the water, you had to continuously blast mediocre firepower to try and empty the cauldron via slow burn evaporation. You would sit in the tub, sweating profusely and breathing heavily for sometimes for over an hour. It was one of the hardest exercises you had ever come up with. That was why you did it once or twice a day, every day, for the 2 consecutive weeks in preparation for the carnival. And it had definitely started becoming easier. You got your time down to 11 minutes. Although it didn't mean much, the results clearly indicated that your training had been successfully strengthening and improving your quirk, one way or another. It was a great thing that your training room had been equipped with a full convection ventilation system to draw out the heat and poisonous gases that often welled inside the room during your quirk training. Many times over the 2 weeks, you had found yourself wondering why you were training your body so hard for something as simple as a school sports festival. But you heard rumors about it getting fairly competitive in previous years. And you knew that there would be all sorts of people attending to watch the sports showdown. There would be support teams, management, ordinaries, hero scouts, and reporters who would all come together to observe. For them, you wanted to perform well, to go above and beyond what you had learned, to surpass even your own expectations. You liked to think of it as your own personal debut. You had to demonstrate what you could do with your raw power and chiseled skill. You knew you could do well. You would strive for first place. One time during the weeks of training, Todoroki had come to your work again. He asked to take you up on your offer at joining you for training inside your home. Only this time you refused. You knew you would be battling against him in the sports festival, and it wasn't worth risking letting him see your fullest capacity. It would give him an upper hand. By the time the festival rolled around, you knew you were ready. Tensions were high within the waiting room. You could tell everyone was struggling to get a grip on their nerves as time ran out. Personally, you spent your time slowly stretching out your limbs and popping your joints, off in one of the corners. Ashido had joined you. Good idea, Yuna-chan, she cheered. Warming up your body for the games. Everyone. The door bursted open and Ida Tenya ran inside. Get your game faces on, we're heading to the arena soon. You rolled your eyes. A few seconds later, you turned your head as you heard your name be called. Yuna. Yeah, you said to Todoroki, who was towering over you. What's up? Everyone in the room turned to see what he had come to say, with such a strong vigor about him. From an objective standpoint, I think it's fairly clear that I'm stronger than you. His voice had gone raspy and uncomposed. You didn't know what had led him to gather that impression. However, I understand that you secured a fair win against me in the battle trials. You raised one eyebrow, pulling your elbow over your head to stretch your tricep. So, with that being said, I'd like to warn you that no matter what. He lowered his head even more. You won't beat me again. You maintained a composed, cold stare right up at him. Whoa, what's with all these declarations of war recently? The carnival really bringing out the fight in everyone. Kaminari mumbled. Yeah, what's the big deal? Kirishima agreed, approaching your corner quickly to grab Todoroki's shoulder. Why were you picking a fight with her all of a sudden? Todoroki nudged him off. We're not here to be each other's friends, he started walking away. Don't forget that this isn't a team effort. You lowered your head. Ashido, who was beside you on the ground, looked concerned. I don't know why you felt the need to say that, Todoroki. He stopped, slowly turning around to face you again. But I beat you even without really using my quirk. You looked up at him with a bold glare. So, I don't think using it for real is going to make defeating you a second time any harder. He and the surrounding students seemed incredibly stunned to hear you say that with such confidence. You and Todoroki held an intense stare with each other. If he thought he was going to get away with threatening you, he was in for a rude surprise. Because you were definitely not here to make friends. Welcome, everyone. Chief Umpire Midnight went on stage to engage the crowd with her captivating persona and welcomed them all into the sports festival with huge praise. She explained carefully that all of the students from different grades and classes would all compete in preliminary games, while the winners of those games would all compete in the finals. The secondary commentator, Present Mike, also welcomed the audience and media for the start of the UA Sports Festival. The first years being your class entered with grand applause. It was clear that your previous encounters with the League of Villains had led to you all gaining immense popularity within the media. The other classes were also acknowledged, but with less fanfare. Midnight introduced the first event, an obstacle race. You and your competing students would have to race for 4 laps around the stadium with the freedom to do whatever you pleased, as long as you stayed on track. Now, then, take your places, contestants. You and everyone around you headed off to prepare and brace for the opening event. The siren countdown began, and immediately you were forced to a push and shove through a long hallway with all of the contestants. Fuck, I can't use my quick to get above these people. I'll burn them. Stress overwhelmed your thoughts, but just as you made it to the door, a blanket of ice coated the floor, encapsulating everyone around you. Perfect. Just what I needed. You released a blast from the soles of your feet, shooting you out of ice to propel in front of the masses. The only other people who evaded Todoroki's ice and emerged at the same time as you were Irizu, Kirishima, Bakugo, and Aoyama, all from your class. Others were not far off. As you ran alongside the others, in pursuit of Todoroki, you soon meet your next obstacle. Enormous robots blocked the path. You recognized them as the 0-pointers from the UA entrance exam that you had watched on YouTube. To your surprise, Todoroki immediately stopped them with a large ice attack. He made it look easy. He ran off underneath them. Todoroki Shouto takes first place, disabling the machines. Watch out. I froze them while they were unbalanced, he claimed. On purpose. Just as he finished his sentence, the robots started to crack and break, ultimately falling over. The path was completely blocked again. Fuck this. You bent down, a bright glow coming from under your feet. Suddenly, you released a heavy explosion from beneath you, catapulting you up and over the center robots. The fiery explosion shocked everyone standing around you, as they watched you fly up into the sky. Yuna 𝗧𝗵𝗲 from Class 1A clears the bots in a second. By the time you made it to the other side, Bakugo had followed your lead and was coming up behind you. You charged forward, towards the third upcoming challenge. Bakugo was only a few meters behind you, as you flew across the sky. Looking down as you flew like a human bullet, you observed the insanely deep pit of jumps and ropes, designed to slow everyone down. God, when did they have time to build this? Yuna 𝗧𝗵𝗲 makes it look too easy. She's catching up to Todoroki Shouto. The field was cleared in 45 seconds. You could feel your firepower slightly decreasing, but it was not enough to slow you down. Suddenly, you could see Todoroki further up the path. How can I show off my quirk better? Should I save it for the later rounds? It almost seemed boring to just blast yourself over all the obstacles. But looking behind you, Bakugo seemed to have no problem with it. With a furrowed expression, you put both your hands flat out, facing your feet, and released twice the amount of energy. A loud, ear-piercing shockwave broke off as you doubled your speed. Geez, she's flying faster than 𝗧𝗵𝗲 is running. The cameras can barely keep up. As the final obstacle grew closer, you decided to get back on the ground, to tackle it maturely. Surely you could demonstrate something other than explosiveness. Todoroki was tiptoeing over a gigantic minefield. So this one is designed to give the people at the back a fair chance at catching up. Solid. Todoroki had made it about halfway through the field. And as Bakugo Katsuki blows right past you, purposely triggering 3 of the mines right beside you, you realized that there was no time to be humble. You clenched your teeth. Fine. You want war? As the smoke cleared, you immediately shot off into the sky, going up and up, almost out of the arena completely. You got it. Holy, where is she going? 𝗵𝗲 screamed. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. A long silence followed as the cameras and entire stadium lost sight of you. 𝗵𝗲 screamed in terror as you came bucketing back down towards the ground. A trail of smoke followed your path through the sky. Bakugo had reached where Todoroki was in the field. The two were basically neck and neck, fighting for first place atop the mines. Dumbass. You shot down towards them, reaching terrifying speeds. And just about as you reached the floor right between the two of them, you performed a fast somersault, bringing your hands to face the floor and releasing an explosion big enough to break your fall. But as well as that, it also triggered every single bomb within a 15-meter radius. You emerged through the explosion completely on fire, charging onward. Bakugo and Todoroki were left in the smoky aftermath as you vanished. Yuna is suddenly in first place. You couldn't help but grin and look back at the damage you had caused. I'm going to fucking kill you for that. You saw Bakugo's smaller explosions blasting through the smoke. What was that explosion at the back? That was way too big. You tumbled onto the floor and kept running. You instinctively looked back at 𝗵𝗃 calling, confused. He couldn't have been talking about your explosion, as you were right at the front of the whole obstacle. Suddenly, a massive explosion, somewhat similar to the size of your largest explosion, goes off right at the back. You saw Midoriya flying through the air, using the explosion to propel him. You couldn't help but smile. That was smart. As his speed seemed to slowly run out, you quickly calculated for him to land somewhere back, closer to where Bakugo and Todoroki were. The three of them were almost tied as Midoriya flew overhead. You only looked back in front of you, as you continued sprinting and still on fire. You could use one final blast and end the race, as the finish line was only seconds away. But another loud bomb from not far behind you rips your attention. Whoa, Bakugo and Todoroki have finally stopped fighting, as they have two new common enemies. Looking up, you suddenly saw Midoriya flying right over your head. Midoriya takes the lead. Holy shit. Even though he landed harshly on the ground, it only took him a second to get back on his feet, running right towards the end. Shit, he's gonna beat me to the tunnel. Again, you positioned your hands out behind your back and released heavy power to propel you to catch up. Get back here. Wow, 1A is amazing. Eraserhead, what are you teaching them? This has nothing to do with me, he muttered. Each of them is powered by their own drive to succeed. They just learned to stop hesitating. You made it to the tunnel, forcefully putting everything you had into blasting through it as quickly as you could. You could feel Bakugo's explosions behind you, and Todoroki's ice grew right below you. I just gotta get in front of Midoriya, the first to make it back to the stadium 𝗧𝗏. You closed your eyes and dove. Midoriya Izuku is first place winner. Calvary. Chapter text. First place, Midoriya Izuku. Second place, Yuna Y/N. Third place, Todoroki Shouto. Fourth place, Bakugo Katsuki. Standing just outside of the tunnel, you put your hands on your hips and took your time catching your breath. The four of you got a moment before the rest of the students started pulling through the gate. You looked down at your arms. You had a strong burning sensation in your veins. Your fingers were twitching too. You didn't normally hold that blasting through the air for quite that long, especially not while going that high into the sky. When you looked up from your arms, you saw both Todoroki and Bakugo staring at you. They both looked fiercely bitter. 𝗧𝗏𝗏. Hey y'all, I really can't be bothered writing a detailed description of the Calvary battle, so I'm just going to summarize what happens. Sorry. In the short 15 minutes of searching for a team, you had been approached by Yaoyorozu. She explained that she wanted to be a support for you as you become the rider. She had half a team already. Todoroki was on that team. At first, he didn't seem too keen on joining with you, but was easily convinced when Yaoyorozu explained her idea. Then, Todoroki pitched that Kaminari would be a perfect pick for right-wing support. He could keep enemies at bay with his electrocution. You listened attentively. So, with Todoroki as your frontal support, Yaoyorozu on your right wing, and Kaminari on your left, you knew you had a strong team. You tied your 710 team point band around your forehead, and the round began shortly. You knew Bakugo and Midoriya would be your two biggest targets. And for the rest of the game, you focused on stealing Midoriya's headband. At some point, you had leapt off of Todoroki's shoulders, flying up into the sky to peruse Midoriya's team. Somehow evading Tokoimi's quirk with fast techniques, you managed to grab a hold of the headband a split second before you fell back down. You plummeted towards the ground, without your quirk engaged.
Catch her,
Irizu ordered, but Todoroki was already on it as he directed the group with an ice wave to just beneath you. He held his arms out and caught you easily, before you climbed back on top. Wow, she flew off on her own. Is that even allowed? She never touched the ground, so technically it's legal. Midnight assured. Good job, Yuna. Kaminari smiled widely. That was perfect. Yuna's team has taken the 10 million points. Please don't go off on your own again. Yaoyorozu begged quietly. We shouldn't take unnecessary risks when we can avoid it. You ignored her, focusing on holding back the attacking teams with firewalls and blasts. The change in status meant that everyone on the field had changed their attention toward you. Your eyes glowed as you battled to the last minutes. Kaminari successfully took care of his side, keeping the competitors at bay with his electricity. Yaoyorozu did a fantastic job of defending with her creation too. Todoroki was a great front, also defending and distracting with his ice. You had made your way around the field, grabbing a hold of two other teams' bands and putting them over your neck. In the very last moments of the game, Midoriya's team had somehow managed to snatch the band from your head with a special move from Tokoimi's quirk. Unfortunately for him, he grabbed the wrong one. We switched them around at the last second. You really think we'd leave the grand prize out in the open? Yaoyorozu claimed proudly. You underestimated us. In a flash, the round was over. You and your team placed first. Second to you came Bakugo's team. And third was Midoriya's team. Bakugo's team had a similar strategy to you, but didn't have the disadvantage of everyone else pursuing him. The crown went wild at the end of the second event. After the winners were announced, your class headed off to go prepare for the final game. You walked through the hall slowly. You'd broken off from the rest of the class to try and get some silence. The crowd's cheering had given you a headache. When you turned around your next corner, you felt a hand wrap around your mouth before strong arms pulled you in, holding you immediately captive. You were just about to explode into flames when you heard the person speak. Shut the fuck up, he screamed into your ear. I'm trying to listen. Your eyes thinned as you realized it was Bakugo. Then, you broke free from his restraints and pulled away. You glared at him. He glared back, pointing down a nearby exit hall. You listened to the voices echoing quietly. I saw your reaction when Yuna mentioned your quirk being similar to All Might's. That's Todoroki, right? So, Midoriya, tell me, are you really All Might's secret love child or something? Am I what? Midoriya immediately started denying the accusations, trying to pry into why he had come up with that. That was a good theory for sure. But there was no way Midoriya could have been an offspring. My father is the number 2 hero, and All Might is the number 1 hero. If you're really somehow connected to All Might, he paused, his voice clear in the silent halls. That would give me even more reason to beat you. Bakugo widened his eyes at you. You kept a bored look. TCH whatever. Then you slipped your hands into your pockets and walked away from him. Next up, you found yourself sitting in a viewing booth somewhere along the outskirts of the arena. Welcome to the first match of the finals tournament. You sat in the upper right corner of the seats, alone. Bakugo and Kaminari sat in front of you. First up, Midoriya Izuku from the Hero course versus Shinsu Hitoshi from General Studies. Despite Ida demanding that you take out your earphones in respect, you just could not bear the noise. So, for the time spent sitting around and simply watching, you couldn't think of anything better than downing out the chatter. The round began. The two of them didn't seem to move like you immediately thought they would. Soon, to your surprise, Midoriya turned around, walking himself out of bounds. He's completely frozen. Did Shinsu already immobilize him? You couldn't even drown out Present Mix's voice with your music. Fuck. Your head was pounding. What's this? Is Midoriya sacrificing his place? If he leaves the border, he'll automatically lose. Uraraka and Ida stood up in panic. No, Deku, don't walk out of the ring. It was clear, after Present Mike explained Shinsu's quirk, that Midoriya had been hypnotized or brainwashed. You made a mental note of not ever speaking to the Shinso guy. But after a few minutes of observing the nerve-wracking battle, you were sure Midoriya was bound to lose. With that, you stood up from your seat. You had to go prepare for your first one-on-one battle pulling punches. Chapter text. Quarterfinals results. Midoriya vs. Shinso. Midoriya's win. Todoroki vs. Hanta. Todoroki's win. Ida vs. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Ida's win. Ashido vs. 𝗬𝗓𝗏. Ashido's win. Yaoyorozu vs. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐴𝐵𝗍. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐴's win. Kirishima vs. 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗏. Kirishima's win. Bakugo vs. Uraraka. Bakugo's win. Next up, Yuna Y/N vs. Kaminari Denki. You started slowly walking out onto the field. I can't believe how large Todoroki's ice attack was on Hantashiro. Would I be able to break free from that? Probably yes. At least with the help of the training techniques. But there is always room for error. You kept your head down, as you were lost in thought. And seeing how Uraraka held herself in the battle against Bakugo was so entertaining. She was so smart with how she handled it. And now I have an idea of that idiot's biggest attack. Finally, the alarm snapped out of your racing head as you made it to the podium. Walking up the stairs, you stretched one arm over the front of your chest, pulling your shoulder to stretch it out, as if you hadn't been doing warm-ups for the last 40 minutes. But your shoulders had to be as strong as you could get them to be able to handle the force of your firepower. She came second place in the race, and first place in the cavalry battle. Now it's time to see how she is in the spotlight. This will be good. You had your eyes trained across the platform, right at your opponent. 3, 2, 1, start. Boy, I'm ready for this. Kaminari immediately started running at you, shortening the distance. Are you ready for the shock of your life? He had engaged his quirk, being circled by zapping yellow electricity. Shit, Y/N. Think. You should have paid more attention to him. You didn't know anything about his quirk, nor his fighting abilities. You're completely in the dark. You had the disadvantage in that sense. But that wasn't going to stop you from winning. Take this. The boy craned his arms back, smiling widely. 100,000 volts. Fuck. As the barbs came flying at you, you ducked to the left and created a waving motion with your arm, projecting a moving wall of fire that caught and redirected his attack. Okay, he's going full out. While the smoke infected his vision and prevented him from seeing you clearly, you took the opportunity to get in closer. Ducking your body low and charging at him from the right, he clearly couldn't see you coming. You saw his body facing the other way. You ran in even closer and held out your arm, while setting it alight. But a moment later, you received a sudden shock to your bicep. You rolled across the floor for a moment. You must have ran right through one of the surges. But it definitely must have been one of his weaker attacks, because to you it only felt like you had grazed your hand on an electric fence. You know, the type to startle cows, not to immobilize well-trained humans like yourself. Kaminari knew where you were now, so you didn't hesitate to make your next move. You regained your footing, spread your stance, and pointed both palms at him, suddenly firing off a wave of fire to swallow him. It was orange fire. You smirked. Good. At least the kid won't drop dead. Does her quirk change color or something? I swear it was green in the obstacle race. WOW. The fire settled, moved off, and when the smoke finally cleared, he was kneeling on the ground, smiling. Kaminari is still standing. Hoo-hoo. The match continues. You fired up both arms with flames. That all you got? He called out. Damn, for a nerdy kid, he's pretty bold. You chucked. Not even close. Then your foot left a dent in the concrete below you as you shot off, flying towards him faster than he could ever hope to foresee. Then it's my turn. He paused, firing up strongly. 10 million volts. Your eyes widened in shock, so you quickly decided to drop. It was better to just move out of the way. You dropped to the floor and rolled, evading his large attack easily. The volts weren't too good at crawling through ultra-hot flames. While the smoke was still around, you darted back to the other side of the block, and then forward again, faster than people were able to keep up with. Your eyes glowed, bright purple. Whoa, what's this? You thinned your eyes, trying to find his silhouette in the shadows. Then you saw him, immediately flying towards him with explosions powering behind you. He wobbled around, suddenly looking completely different than before. Something is wrong. In reaction, you resisted firing off your explosion. Instead, you turned away, rolled on the ground, and stabilized yourself with both hands. Back on the viewing stands, Bakuga sat beside Kirishima. No. 𝗵𝗲 short-circuited, wailed Jiro. That's a guaranteed win for Yuna. Wow, her reaction time is amazing though. Kirishima sat forward with a huge smile. I don't know how she noticed that so fast. I sure as hell wouldn't have. I would have blasted that stupid dunce face all the way to hell anyway, despite his stupid brain. We know you would, Bakuga ribbit. Tsuyu chimed in. Good thing it's Yuna who's fighting him, and not you, ribbit. Shut up, frog. Ribbit. You stood frozen for a moment, your arm still craned back and ready to blast 𝗵𝗲. But he had completely stopped moving. All confidence had left his expression as he stared blankly off into the distance, with drool running down his face. Jesus, what did I do to him? You whispered to yourself. Hope he hasn't got brain damage. Fuck. 𝗵𝗲 has short circuit. That's an incredible advantage to Yuna, as he becomes a total idiot when he uses too much power. Oh. So, he's just a dumbass that can't control himself. Cool. Grabbing him by both shoulders, you turned him around and started guide-walking him away. With a blank expression, you pushed him out of the border. He stumbled out and turned around with a goofy smile, giving his thumbs up at you. 𝗵𝗲 is out of bounds, Yuna wins. That was anticlimactic, you thought to yourself, before receiving a deafening applause from the crowd and making your way back to the 1A warm-up room. Up in the monitor booth, Aizawa and Present Mike had both turned off their microphones for a short intermission. She reacted to 𝗵𝗲's altered state shockingly fast and stopped her attack as soon as she had. That kind of self-control is... Whoa, that could have saved his life, right? Yes. I'm just impressed with how quickly she noticed, even through all the smoke. Wowzera, that's really cool. She's quite rebellious and cold, so I think she'll have trouble fitting in with some of the students. But despite that, I'm confident that my recommending her to UA was a good decision. Her quick thinking and tenacity means for a perfect fit in the hero course. Aizawa mumbled quietly under his breath. After that round, I have even higher hopes for her to excel in the course. Wait, I didn't know that you recommended her. Present Mike reacted. That's amazing. What she just demonstrated is a very important quality to being a successful hero. A quality that not very many of my students have grasped yet. What's that? Present Mike asked. Knowing when to pull your punches. WWW, you're right. The second round of finals had begun. Midoriya and Todoroki had started their round. You watched on. Oh no crap. I'm missing it. Kirishima complained as he ran into the booth with the rest of class. Hey, nice job making it to the second round, Kirishima. 𝗵𝗲 said. Huh. It seemed that 𝗵𝗲 was already back to normal. It had only been about 20 minutes since your battle with him. So, it really must be like a short circuit. You too, Yuna. You fought well. He turned around to face you, holding a thumbs up. I had to use 100% of my power to keep you back, even for 2 minutes. I'm kind of embarrassed, especially since you're a girl, and all. This dumbass. You glanced his way. Thanks. Hey, thanks man. Kirishima smiled at his friend. Looks like I take down Bakugo next. I'll kill you, the blonde growled. Yeah, sure. In your dreams, he smiled. No, but really, it's crazy how you, Todoroki and Yuna all have moves that can blast the whole stadium. It's not as easy as you think. You observed the conversation silently, looking at Bakugo who had spoken. If you overuse your muscles, you rip them apart. If you sprint too much, you run out of breath. He kept his brows furrowed, looking angry. Quirks are physical abilities too. They can get worn out, you can't just use them non-stop. He was right. They do get worn out. Even yours. But what was he getting at? It makes sense when you put it that way, Kirishima agreed. I wonder if that's how Midoriya plans to beat Todoroki. Then you turned your attention back towards the match. Todoroki fired a huge ice blast at his opponent, but Midoriya immediately fended it off and destroyed his attack with a single finger. You crossed your brows, paying close attention. Todoroki ran forward, quick on his feet and direct with his aim. His judgment was spot on, alongside his intelligent reasoning. It was impressive. Midoriya somehow kept him at bay, even after damaging his arm. The way you felt every one of his counterattacks harshly blow away over the crowd was interesting you. You observed how Midoriya's body couldn't seem to handle the backlash of his own quirk. You think you can win with half your strength? Look at me, Todoroki. You haven't put a single scratch on me yet. Midoriya's normally reserved, timid personality had transformed into something much more mighty. So give it your all. You had forgotten about Todoroki's left side. Why hadn't you seen him use it yet? It probably had to do with what he had told you about his father, that time he walked you home after your shift. You narrowed your gaze again, focusing hard. Because if he thought he'd be able to beat you with just his ice. Todoroki was in for a rude surprise burning. Chapter text. Second round results. Todoroki vs Midoriya. Todoroki's win. Iida vs Tokoyami. Tokoyami's win. Kirishima vs Bakugo. Bakugo's win. Ashido vs Yuna. Not applicable. Seeing Todoroki finally tap in to use his firepower in the battle with Midoriya was more than shocking. The way he fired up both sides of his quirk at the same time, it showed how powerful he truly can be. It was lucky you got to see his left side in action. You knew what you were facing. Because the battle between them had gotten so intense, Safety Squad heroes, Cementos and Midnight had to stop the fight. Todoroki took the win. That was crazy. Tokoyami's Dark Shadow really is something special. You walked your way back towards the battleground, fists clenched. Next up, Ashido Mina vs Yuna Y/N. You stepped up to the platform, immediately hearing almost everyone in the stands cheering for Ashido to do her best. They probably knew she wouldn't be able to hold up against you, but they wanted to give her the determination and inspiration to try her best anyway. 3, 2, 1, start. You flatly smiled at her from across the field. Do your best? Her confident glare changed to almost confused delusion, for only a moment before she switched back to a smile. She closed her fist. You too. She broke off into a sprint, running towards you. You scoffed, bounding off towards her. Already full sprint. Wow, these girls don't leave any room for chatter. You hadn't activated your quirk yet. Neither had she. The two of you charged at each other, and as soon as you were close enough, Ashido launched a handful of her acid at you. You veered off the left, easily avoiding it. I'm sorry about this, you muttered, running for her. She started running to your right while you turned left, and then her smile dropped as your eyes started glowing purple. Then, you shot flames out of your hands to propel your body towards her. Yuna's attacking quickly. You gave her no time to react as you blasted into her body, shoving her all the way back. She rolled across the ground, somehow landing still in bounds. You were surprised to see her stand to her feet so quickly after just being harshly body slammed. You looked up at her. She seemed quite agile, similar to you. Finally, you blasted towards her again before planting your forearm into her stomach and forcing her back with a small blast. Ashido Mina is out of bounds. Yuna wins. Damn it. Ashido cussed, sitting on her but on the floor just out of bounds. I didn't stand a chance. You walked over to her, offering out your hand. I'm sorry. I had to be quick to reserve my energy for my upcoming battles. She smiled at your offer, immediately taking your hand. I understand. She fell back down. Oh, I'm sorry, Iida. Your piping hot skin had burned her. It had slipped your mind. Geez, she rubbed her hand in pain. I am sorry, I didn't do that on purpose, you mumbled, genuinely. Then, you took off your sports shirt, revealing a heat-resistant singlet you had on below. You wrapped the shirt over your hand and held it down to her again. Here. She looked down to your hand, and back up at your face, before bursting out into laughter. It's okay. I know you didn't mean it. She grabbed your hand and you easily pulled her to her feet. But damn, that was so cool. You beat me so quickly, and you're so fast even without your quirk. Thank you. You rubbed the back of your neck nervously. I didn't mean to go overboard. It was so youthful and cute. Midnight shouted out. Yuna 𝗧𝗵𝗲 advances to the semifinals. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 looked at you with a bright smile after hearing the announcement. Congrats. The 4 finalists all went to their respective rooms to prepare for the semifinals. While enjoying your alone time, you had heard Bakugo in Todoroki's waiting room next door, making some feeble attempt at intimidating him. You overheard him telling Todoroki to use his fire on him too, and to not hold back. If you were to battle Todoroki, you hoped he'd use his fire on you too. There was no way he'd even have a chance with just his ice. Suddenly, someone kicked down your door. And you too, you stupid firecracker. Bakugo snarled, stomping into the room. You better give it your all if you don't want to die when I meet you in the finals. I know you're going to win against Bird Brains next round. And I'm going to beat Icy Hot without a doubt. So it'll be me and you in the showdown. You stared blankly at him. Good? Good? What do you mean good? It's good that you're gonna get your ass handed to you? I'll fucking destroy you like I destroyed Roundface. If I had half as much time in the ring as she did against you, you paused. I wouldn't be a winner. I'd be a murderer. Yeah. You really think you have any chance at beating me? Explosions started crackling in his hands as he spoke. You turned away. Something like that. His eye twitched with pure agitation. I'll wipe the floor with you. Fucking bitch. Better call your parents to tell them you won't be home for fucking dinner. You scoffed. He's treading on thin ice now. There's only so much bullshit a person can listen to. Just so you know, I'm really gonna enjoy watching them scrape your blood and guts off the platform, he growled. Yuna 𝗧𝗵𝗲 to the arena. Tisk. You stood from your seat, walking right past Bakugo and nudging his shoulder on the way. You walked out into the hall, turning right. Hey. You turned around with an agitated look in your eye. Todoroki was standing behind you in the hall. Do your best, he said. You scoffed again, turning away and marching down the hall. Competing in the first match of the semifinals, Yuna 𝗧𝗵𝗲 versus 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃. The two of you stood on opposite sides of the platform. Plenty of distance separated you. What is Yuna's new look? She seems suddenly all riled up. You ignored the annoying call, trying to figure out the best course of action. 3, 2, 1, start. You wasted no time with your first attack. The idea was to close the gap between you and attack up close with everything you had. The bright blue light emanated from your feet as you crouched down before blasting off, flying across the arena right at 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃. His dark shadow flew up in front of you, and you instinctively put up both your hands. A trail of sparks ran down your forearms until they hit your palms, and you let off a huge explosion. You dropped to the floor beside 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃, who quickly tried moving towards you, and you shot upwards with your feet, punching him in the jaw. Good, stay close. He can barely defend if I'm this close. You backed up a tiny bit, shooting both palms towards him, but just as you let your explosion go off, dark shadow blocked. It wouldn't let you get much closer to 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃's figure. You know, one thing I noticed about you? You put out your left hand, firing a shot to send your body to the right. Then, you fired from your feet and shot upwards. Dark Shadow couldn't keep up. Your body was fully alight as you held your hands close to your chest, shooting above and around 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃, making a circle over their heads, and releasing a small canister of dust from your shoe as you did. You circled around the two of them, almost back to where you had started. When you appeared in front of 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃's face, you grinned. Your bird friend doesn't like light very much. You blasted one shot at 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗃's face, and the powder that spilled from your shoe ignited and instantly set alight, creating a huge ring of fire explosion around the two of them. Dark Shadow screeched in pain. What was that? A special move. Not waiting another moment, you bolted forward. With both hands outstretched, you reached for 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃's body and unleashed a long-distance blow, right at his chest. Dark Shadow was unable to defend for that split second. And after the shot went off, 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃's form was thrown back across the stadium, onto the grass with intense force, at the hands of your explosion. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃 is out of bounds. Yuna wins. Limits. Chapter text. Semi-final results. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃 versus Yuna. Yuna's win. Todoroki versus Byakugan. Byakugan's win. Just as Byakugan had predicted, you were set to be facing each other in the finals. You had to admit that you were slightly disappointed that Todoroki hadn't taken the win. You wanted to face him more than anyone. And you hadn't even been there to watch their match. You had no idea how close it was. Yes, it all comes down to this, folks. From the hero course, Byakugan Katsuki versus his classmate Yuna Y/N. The applause that erupted from the crowd for the two of you was sort of eye-opening. There were thousands of people cheering you on. If there was anything that was going to distract you from this match, it was that fact. You took a deep breath in and breathed it out. Now, give it up for them, everyone. Present mic announced. 3, 2, 1. Start. Byakugan immediately sprinted for you. Much like your method of maneuvering, he used explosions from his palms to propel his body. It was only seconds before he got close to you. You let off a short grunt as you turned to his approaching being and fired a blast of fire right at him. Nice try. I've seen you have some pretty powerful attacks. He let off a pump from his right hand, redirecting his body to go left. But you have shit aim. You tried to follow his figure, setting your body alight in defense. But he was so fast, you could barely keep up. I assume you can handle some heat. Because of your quirk, Byakugan positioned himself behind you, palms facing your back. So why don't we put it to the test? You turned around as Byakugan launched his full-scale attack right at you. Your eyes widened as the explosion swallowed you. Oh my gosh. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 yelled in a panic, rushing towards the border. That was insane. It's burning my skin even from up here. That was his biggest attack yet. Kirishima grumbled. He's definitely not going easy on her. Geez man, so ungentlemanly. But they're both too stubborn. They'd die before they'd let themselves lose. Kaminari observed. If there's anyone that the heroes will have to stop, it'll be these two. You're right, but shit. What if Yuna's dead? No human can withstand that type of force front-on. The class went silent as Byakugan's gigantic attack started to fade into just a cloud of smoke. When it cleared, the students finally saw you on the ground, with your hands and feet dug into the concrete, holding your own against the force of the explosion. You had a small case of blue fire around your body as it was pounded by the force. What? One shouted. How? Why Yuna-chan don't? Midoriya trailed off, disturbed but how big of an explosion Byakugan had not hesitated to unleash on you. Fight hard. Don't let him bully you. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 walked over to her friend, putting her hand softly on his shoulder. Hey, Deku, I think Yuna is a lot stronger than you give her credit for. Look at her. 𝗬𝗧𝗏's face completely lit up. She's already standing back up. Everyone in the class cheered for you, as loud as they could. Byakugan glared down at you. Still alive, huh? You blinked your eyes and pulled your knees under your body to balance yourself. It's gonna take a lot more than that to take me down. Holy hell. How did Yuna withstand an explosion that huge? She's already back on her feet. Oh my, Class 1A truly is amazing. You noticed that Byakugan's arms were twitching. Now, it's my turn, dickwad. You shot off your back foot flying towards him, and as time slowed down, you generated a ball of sizzling energy in your palms, turning to face it towards Byakugan. In reaction to the attack coming, he quickly moved to the left and into the air. But your strong stance had supported you, simply turning your body and changing the direction of your attack. As the flames moved in front of him, Byakugan flew right into the thick, heavy fire. And he came flying out the other side, falling before he crashed into the ground and tumbled for a few meters. You immediately shot over to him, darting across the platform, leaving a trail of smoke behind you. His skin seemed to be sizzling. His body wasn't made to produce fire like yours. He only generated it from his palms, which meant that anywhere else was not nearly as heat-proof as his hands were. You grabbed him by the shirt, using all the physical strength you could muster to pick him up, and with a strong explosion, you threw him across the field. He flew across the field and smashed into the ground. Surely it's not going to be this easy. One blast can't have taken him down. Whoa. Yuna Y/N is getting the upper hand. I heard what you were saying earlier about quirks having a limit. A bright blue light shone from both of your palms. The wind had picked up because of the power and immense heat in your hands and body. You walked over to where he hand landed and hovered one hand up over his body on the floor as he coughed himself back to reality. The harsh, poisonous gas that rested in the air around him was hard for him to ignore. I guess that must be from personal experience. A loud surging sound came from your hands. Because I've never had a limit. You have to dig your heels into the ground behind you as you put both arms forward and clench your teeth while unleashing a planetary attack upon the crouched man. An enormous wall of fire swallows him. Half of the stadium is immediately consumed in a heavily oxidative blaze, rapidly blowing them away. A sharp, stabbing pain comes from your forearms as you continue to force out everything you have into the attack. She's definitely not going easy on him either, 𝗵𝗲 observed, covering his face to block the blistering heat wave from blinding him. It's kinda hot. She's so impressive. Her brute strength is neck and neck with the top UA students. Not to mention her tenacity. She's so powerful and driven, but also super smart. She's amazing. Get him, Yuna. Go. Fight. Go Y/N. 𝗧𝗪𝗓. Confused to hear where the faint screaming was coming from, you looked up into the sky. 𝗬𝗧𝗵𝗲 came rocketing down towards you like a flaming meteor. Fuck. How'd he get up there so fast? Your eyes widened, your flaming attack from before stopping as you rotated to face him. 𝗬𝗪𝗵𝗀 comes flying in from above. Most of his shirt had been burned off from the blow. He used the impact to shoot himself up into the sky. The world seemed to slow down for a moment. Your arms trembled by your sides. Hey, stupid bastard. Your expression melted into panic. You better give me all you've got if you want any chance at surviving this. He used his blasts to vigorously rotate his body, gathering momentum to spin. The air around him started to gravitate, turning his body into a spinning tornado-like inferno as he comes crashing down towards you. 𝗧𝗲𝗄. Unsure of what to do, you point your hands up towards him. Your veins below your skin started to glow bright green. 𝗵𝗃𝗄. The air around the two of you cracks and fizzles as you meet each other's biggest attacks. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏. The whole stadium was blown away, suffering intense heat from the contact. Waves and waves of blasting combustion overwhelmed the arena. Everyone in 1A screamed out in terror, scared of what would come of the move. 2 minutes later, the smoke finally began to clear. Both of you were on the floor, barely conscious. You coughed and spat some blood into the crumbled concrete. You rolled over, propping your shaking arms below you to hoist yourself back into a standing position. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 was much slower. You hadn't faced off with someone with this much firepower before. You were concerned that you had met your match. But that wasn't enough for you to stop. A heavy foot lands in front of you as you gather yourself. All of the veins in your arms and legs illuminated through your skin as you glared at your opponent. You struggled to catch your breath. Oi. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 heard you and slowly looked up. Get up, you ordered, your voice shaking. This isn't over. He propped one foot up, his head hanging low. Damn right, it isn't. You clenched your fists. It isn't over until I'm sure you're dead. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 slowly rose to his feet. And I win an indisputable first place. Aizawa, how are these kids still going? The stadium was silent. They're in the hero course for a reason, he said. Perseverance is a given. At the announcement, you and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 both grinned. To be suffering immense pain and still carry on fighting, that takes a lot of resolve. Everyone watching held their breaths as they watched you standing tall. It's easy, you breathed out. Fire started to crawl up your body from your ankles before it consumed you entirely. You just have to push past your limits. You and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 shared a stare down from across the field. You think having limits on your quirk is an excuse to lose? You were still out of breath, talking quietly. Well, I'll show you what it means to deny your limits. 𝗵𝗃𝗄's eyes doubled in size as he watched your fire's color change from green and blue to a dark, mystifying purple. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 felt his chest struggling for air. Why did it feel like he had swallowed knives? Was it your attack? Did that do it to him? Your fire started to expand, moving quickly as if it had gotten angry. Slowly, you lifted off the floor as if you had lost gravity. You put your arms out wide and craned your head back. This is it. You have to beat him. Fire seemed to have consumed your brain too, as all logical thinking disappeared. A thick, black-like mist muddled all of your thoughts. You couldn't think straight. But that didn't matter. Don't think, just do. You denied your concerns, pinching your eyes shut, before you blasted a hefty shot right out of your back, shooting your almost limp body forward. The hot wind beat against your face as you flew, until you caught a sudden whiff of something very unfamiliar. All thoughts melted into blackness as you passed out midair. Your limp body flew through the air, before it came crashing down in a heavy smash into the destroyed concrete. Yuna stepped out of bounds. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 Katsuki wins. Half of 1A stepped forward, running to bang their hands into the front railing in protest. What, no way. Just her heel went out. Kirishima complained. Totally unfair. Midnight shouldn't have ended it because of that. Uraraka and Midoriya sat silently beside one another. She turned to face him. 𝗧𝗏𝗃? He lowered his head, obviously feeling very troubled. He clutched the notebook in his hands, so hard he stared to shake. Kaken. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 looked in pure shock over at your unconscious body, a few feet away from him. His eyelids were heavy. His chest was closing in. What? He looked up at Midnight confused. No. She had more in her. That's not a solid win. Getting an unexpected blast of adrenaline, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 leapt to his feet and charged over to you. He dropped to his knees, spinning you over onto your back. He grabbed your singlet by the collar, breathing heavily. Wake up. Quit fooling around, he screamed in agony. We have to finish this. He shook your unconscious body profusely. Get up. We can't stop until I have an envied. First, place. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 fell to the floor beside you. Midnight was behind him, her pink mist floating around his head. She looked over to 𝗧𝗵𝗲, and he nodded his head. It was over.